T-minus 30 seconds. T-minus 20 seconds. Ten, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0.
Fluff and Grow. MJ, Dave Levinson in the building. How you doing today, sir?
Very well today. How about you, bud?
Doing good, feeling good. It's Wednesday. Not gonna lie, I kind of stole one on you. I think you were expecting 2 weeks from last.
We're here. That's all that matters, right?
Yes, we're here, and thank you for everyone else who's here. If this is your first time tuning into Unfiltered Reptiles podcast, I'm your boy MJ. This is Dave Levinson. Do us a favor, please hit that subscribe button, hit that notification bell. That way you're on top of every single podcast we have here on this podcast, on this platform. Tonight we have a great episode. Good old Justin Kobylka in the building, man. We have lots to talk about. I do want to say before we dip into what we have to look forward to tonight, this episode is brought to you by Kobylka Cafe. Freshest and bestest rodents delivered to your doorstep. $30 flat rate shipping anywhere in the U.S. Anywhere from day one pinks to mammoth rats. Been a huge Kobylka Cafe loyal customer for 5 years now, going on 6. Either way, I have my whole collection that is thriving off Kobylka Cafe rodents. And go to their website, go give them a follow. Shout to Desiree, shout to Steven, shout to the entire Kobylka Cafe team. God, I love Steve. I love Des. Miss them. Hope they're doing well. And then we'll be back on this podcast here shortly once they got everything up to gear. But Dave Levinson, what do people have to look forward to tonight, man? What's on tonight's agenda? If you could kind of maybe help the viewers out of what they have to look forward to with tonight's guest.
Hypothetical conversations about where the industry could be going based on technology advancements in the world. We're going to get a little bit into CRISPR technology. I don't know if many of you guys got to see, but the University of Georgia took the albino gene and put it into a brown anole and reproduced an albino brown anole from that. We're going to talk about the metaverse a little bit, the possibility of running your business through the metaverse, similar like we have through Facebook over the last decade.
Nice.
Let's see. Unnatural selection. Again, talking CRISPR technology. Great little thing on Netflix. Came out in 2019 talking about it. A little bit about the shed test. I haven't really had a chance to talk about it, but I know that conversation has been beat to death at this point by everybody in the industry. So we'll probably dabble in that just a little bit.
Right.
And honestly, possibly some talk about hybridizing different species and a few other things about importing ball pythons and other species.
Well, man, there you go. I'm pretty excited for tonight. Listen, I always have so much to talk to Justin that doesn't really evolve with like important tech shit like this, only because I'm a huge Kobylka fan and I always have other stuff to talk about that's wrapped around breeding. Not that breeding isn't the future, but so much more to talk about. And that's why I'm glad I have Dave here to kind of run the ropes on tonight's episode, because I'm looking forward to what we have in store for everyone tonight. I do want to say shout out to everyone in the live chats, man. Live chats are looking good. Pandemic Pythons, welcome to the damn chat. What is good? Big Mike 1776 Exotics, how you doing, buddy? Thanks for tapping in. Sloan Morphs, what is up? Got my right hand man right here. This is Big O Adler. What is up, Adler? Serpent Eclipse Reptiles. Blacklist Exotics. What is up? Hissy Fit Reptiles. What is up? Chantel. What is up? Julio Fulio. What is up? Trademan Exotics. What is up? Big Joe DeStefano. Forget about it. What is up? Abe's Exotics. My man Abe right here. What is up? Slithery Serpents. How you doing? H&H Pythons. What up? And we're going to end it with Jay Hendo. No Pretendo. What is up? Man, listen. Back-to-back episode or back-to-back weeks getting Dave Levinson on a podcast. I am going to run with this. This is going to be great. Are you ready to rock, Dave, or what?
Very ready for this, bud.
All right, we're ready for this as well. Hope you guys are great. Stay hydrated. It's going to be a good one. It's going to get hot. It's going to get heavy. But let's get this cracking. Episode 52 coming right at you. Justin Kobylka of Clutch.
Blue face, baby. Yeah, I'm every woman's fantasy. Mama always told me I was gonna break hearts. I guess it's her fault. I'm stupid. Don't be mad at me. I wanna see you bust down. Bend that shit over on the deck. Yeah, make that shit clap. She threw it back, so I had to double back on the gang. Smacking high off the drug. I tried to tell myself 2 times enough. And the nigga relapsed on the dead low. Ain't no running, Tatiana. You gon' take me, damn sure, Tatiana. I think the pussy up and now it's a murder scene. Keep shit player, Tatiana, like you ain't never even heard touchdown.
Vroom, vroom, bitches. It is game time. Justin Kobylka, ladies and gentlemen of Clutch.
So we good to go? We get rolling now?
I think we're good.
Okay. That makes sure. I didn't know if there was a second part to that. All right. Honestly, Justin, could have this conversation with a lot of different people. The reason I picked you is I feel like since you've been in the hobby, there's been a lot of little things that you've brought in that just simply weren't for breeding. You know, one thing I really like in your early days was your phone covers and your tablet covers. You know, I don't know exactly how you did it. You can get into a little bit of that, but around the same time, you had your Adam and Eve t-shirt. And you've always had some extracurricular stuff going on the side, Clutch being one of them right now. But, you know, kind of, you know, I just want to hear about this snake shed thing, man. Like, you had to be working through zoos to get some of that stuff. A lot of it was venomous animals, from what I can remember. I thought it was a pretty neat little thing you were working on.
Yeah. That was a partnership with a gentleman named Mark Tovar. He's a really cool guy, lived in Missouri. And he came up with this idea once where he was just playing around one day. He took a snake shed and he literally just put it through a laminator, just like your random paper laminator. And he's like, this is really cool, Justin. We can just, we can preserve a cool like pattern of a snake in forever if we laminate like this and seal it up. And he sent it to me in the mail. I thought it was really cool. And then we started talking. He's like, how cool would it be if we could put these inside like a golf club and then make snake hooks with the shed skin in there? And it took about 6 months of just him and I kind of working and talking together, and he kept experimenting. He was really the experimenter, the tinkerer behind the scenes. And I was just like egging him on and like excited. And eventually, basically, he started putting colors of this, like a base color vinyl behind the laminate and laminating that way using big old presses like you use for t-shirts and that sort of thing. We're pressing like a color behind the shed, which made it look like the snake in the pattern, of course, was in the shed, and tinkering with that. Sometimes he'd color them and make them look, you know, color the background. Amazing thing. And then he had some personal issues in his life. And I can't really go into it because it's private, and partly because I don't even know all of it, but he ended up kind of shelving the whole thing for about 2 years and just going through a lot. And after a while, he reached back to me and said, hey, I want to start this up again. I'm like, you know, after going through this roller coaster with you for the last couple of years, I'm going to let you take it. So, so I was out at that point, and nothing's happened really since then. The company still exists. It's still on Facebook and everything, but I don't think they're actively doing anything.
Okay. Honestly, past that, I never saw anything. You had the Green Mamba one, which I really liked a lot back then.
I still have some. Yeah.
Yeah. I'll be honest. If I ever visit again, you want to hook me up, I'd love to have some. If you had a snake hook, I'd take it herping with me every time.
Yeah,
What about the Adam and Eve shirt, man? Let's cover all that stuff in the beginning. Where did that concept come from?
That was the same gentleman, same guy. He had art. He's an artist at heart. He drew that, and you know, I had some input just verbally into, you know, refining it, but it was really all his art. I still have a big old one right here I'm looking at on my wall. But when I got out of the company, it was his IP. So
okay, tight. Oh, still rememberable.
I would love to license that and get it back, but he's so far uncontactable, if that's a word. Okay.
Well, he could live out in the woods like I do in Missouri, and it's very easy to get lost out here and ignore everyone else.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Well, I'm trying to think whether we want to get right into it or not, but all right, well, how about this? where do you want to go? You want to start? I actually want to hear a lot about Clutch. Can you break it down for me? I want to hear all the details. Again, I know you're collaborating with somebody else on that project. Break it all down for us.
Yeah. So this is a collaboration between, just to keep it simple, I guess, between me and Showcase Serpents. Showcase Serpents, a lot of your viewers there will know about them. Sebastian is a rock star, super cool guy, South African. And he's living in the DC area now. He bought a bunch of snakes from me, oh, man, almost 10 years ago, probably. Super cool guy. Yeah, there you go. Super cool guy. Him and Adam are partners in Showcase Serpents. And Sebastian started a software company about 3 years ago. And we were close friends. He asked me to invest in like the seed money, the startup money for his company. So I became the #1 investor in the company, just as a friend, like, let's do this, man. I hope it goes great. I'm investing. So, but then about 2 years ago, I was struggling with my website. I hated my incubator page. I felt like the person I was dealing with just did not care about anything. You know how developers can sometimes be. They're just trying to do the bare minimum. And so I said, Sebastian, is there any way your company can make me a new incubator page? Because honestly, that's the only reason anybody visits my website, is to see all the clutches that are hatching, right? It all started with Ralph Davis, right? The incubator. And then I started it, and he left the industry for now, and I kept it going for a long time, but it was really kind of getting old school. It was really old fashioned. It wasn't new technology. So I hired Sebastian and his company to create an incubator page. And we got into it, got about 3-4 months into it, started to look pretty good. I'm like, this is great, man. But you know what? It'd be awesome if all the babies, had like some sort of inventory system or ID system, so that people could click on the baby and they would see the ID number if they ever wanted to inquire about it. And he's like, well, you sound like you need like a little inventory management. I'm like, yeah. So we started doing that, and then it started just ballooning. And then one day I was like, this is the start of something amazing. And honestly, even if it was just for Canova, it would be totally worth it. But it also would really help the industry too. I think it would help, because we're building in a lot of genetic genealogies and simple ways to keep track of genetics through the generations of your snake. And one of the biggest things I've noticed, so I don't want to monologue here on you.
You're fun, man.
This is my flow of thought. Yeah. So one of the things I've noticed in this industry, and I feel like it's a real issue, is just the difficulty of entry into this industry with the knowledge base that's necessary to learn all the genes and know how they interact, right? And because you're trying to learn, how basic Mendelian genetics work, and then times tens of thousands of all the combos that we've made, and you're supposed to somehow know which ones are kind of important, which ones look good, which ones don't look good, which ones are expensive. There's just a lot, right? And so being that is so difficult for the average person who comes in as a hobbyist to kind of wrap their minds around, I felt like we might run into a problem where you may have half or more of potential future breeders turned off on the whole idea because of the difficulty level. The ease of entry was just too many barriers. And I started seeing Clutch as a tool to simplify and categorize that to where you don't have to know it all in order to do really well, in order to really get your mind around it and do okay. So, and for me, the practicality of that is that any of my team members here can sit down. They don't have to be genetic geniuses. They don't have to be Justin. They can know every snake I have, all the genetics, how it's all passed. It's all calculated by the system. And so as a business tool for me, it was huge. I think it's a good thing for everybody. Sorry, that was like 10 minutes long, it felt like.
It's supposed to be at least 10 minutes long.
4.5.
Ish. So,
but yeah.
Now, here's the thing. A lot of things come in handy with a thing like that, especially when you have a larger collection. And, in ball pythons, let's talk about like the Monsoon project. Like, imagine if we had this technology 10 years ago. We had talked about how, I can't remember the breeder's name overseas that started the Moray project, but you had made a comment that one of the early clowns they ever produced was actually Het Moray. And with this software, they could have tracked everything back, looked at every clutch they ever did, and knew exactly what happened. And there's a lot of people in the industry that have done really well with that over the years. I had brought it up to you when I saw you last time that P. Call had an Xanthic Pied pop up in his collection. I want to say 2016, and he was able to trace the het all the way back to one of the original hets he had ever made. And it was a great grandson of that was with that great grandmother, and it made an Xanthic Pied. Right. Same thing with Ben's collection, man. Things pop up, and it's, if you don't know where everything came from, you don't exactly know what you have in front of you. So it really comes in handy. Corn Snakes actually had this years ago. There was a website that was built up where everyone was always putting in their information. Everyone was keeping track of everything when Corn Snakes were really peaking. I'm not sure if it's still a functional website nowadays, but it was a big thing in that community also.
Yeah, technology has come so far. It's really amazing. I think any program probably needs to be kind of refreshed every few years just to keep up with what's possible. It's pretty amazing.
No, for sure. Well, talking about just that part of it, what was your draw to the industry in the first place? Because, we all came in kind of randomly. We all had different, reasons how we found out about this. I found out from a local guy at a pet store. Who planted that seed initially about what you can do in this industry?
Well, like most people, it was like ball pythons, and I mean, just snakes in general from early on. I started with king snakes and corn snakes. It was actually, what's his name? He's there in Texas now. Split Rock Reptiles, who was the first breeder I ever bought from. He breeds king snakes and milk snakes and blackheads now, blackhead pythons. He sent me my first breeder pair of Sinaloan milk snakes, and he guided me through the first year. I mean, this guy, he's everything that is best about the industry, because he guided me through that first year, making sure I was successful breeding that adult pair and getting, a little clutch of like 6, Sinaloan milk snake babies. And that ignited a love for me. Just like, if I could do this every day, I would love that. But if I had been unsuccessful, or if he'd been rude or like a lot of people are as well, I maybe wouldn't be here now. But it was the love of that process. I had a bunch of snakes around that time, just random things, but actually making some babies was just such a huge thing. And it was around that time I went to a Repticon in Atlanta, and I met another guy who's now long gone, Cypress Creek Reptiles. You guys remember that name?
Cypress Creek. I don't remember that one.
2004, 2003, somewhere in there. 2002. Went to.
I was experiencing my first strip clubs in Tijuana around that time, so I had nothing to do with nothing to do with breeding quite yet. So this is why I respect you, Justin. Continue, please.
Yeah, I didn't know what strip club was at that time. Yeah. So that guy, he had the first pieds I ever saw in person, and that's why I always, to this day, I say pieds are the entry drug for ball pythons.
For sure, 100%. I agree.
Like, see a pied, like, that's not a normal snake. There's something about that, and now we see so many amazing things. It's hard to go back to seeing that first pied, but it blew my mind. And then when I saw it was like, I forget, it was $10,000 or something. I saw that price. I'm like, man, like, who wouldn't want to make 10 of those for $100,000, right? That number puts it in your head.
I'm curious, Justin, because obviously, like how you said, pied was the same way for most people. Like, it was like that gene. What was it, or when was it when pied kind of took the step back? Because, obviously pied was like at this point, but now you're making like shit that's like, I mean, no offense to pied, don't get me wrong, pied still, but I'm saying like, holy crap, So when was that? Like, when did you start outdoing pied stuff in your collection?
It was quite a while, probably 4 or 5 years in before I made anything that could compete with pieds. Because that was my initial focus. Bought a couple from Pete, and when Ralph started making dreamsicles, I bought a lavender and made double heads, and started thinking in that direction. Then I bought my first clown I bought from TSK, and the second one from Brian Barczyk, right there at Daytona. Best investments I ever made. Best investments, and I have a lot to credit to my uncle. So my uncle was all my initial seed money. He bought all these animals for me because I was so passionate about it. And to his credit, he just noticed in somebody that here's somebody who's serious. He didn't have a lot of knowledge yet, right, about life, but serious and was just absolutely obsessed with something. And I still meet customers like that all the time. And when I see them, I'm like, I know what that's like. Because all I do is go around and talk about how I want to be a ball python breeder, even though I had no idea what I was doing. But he helped me out. Without him, even if someone else had given me the money, I wouldn't have been successful, because he made a rule early on. He's like, Justin, I'm not going to buy anything or give you money to buy anything unless I personally think it's beautiful. And he didn't know crap about ball pythons. And so, like, I tried to buy fires, I tried to buy cinnamons, I tried to buy the first yellow bellies. I tried to buy a bunch of stuff that's, relatively subtle. And he's like, no, absolutely not. No, I'm not buying any of that. And all that stuff was a fine investment, but it was like a razor thin investment. You know how these things went. They just turned over so fast and dropped like a rock. And so he's like, no, I'm buying lavender. I'll buy you lavender. I'll buy you a clown, Justin. I'll buy as many pies as you could possibly want. I'm not buying a cinnamon for crap. There's no way. And you know what? That's the best thing for me, because it's so easy, I think, to get early on, to get so involved in whatever is the gene of the day, and you lose perspective on what is objectively beautiful, which is what's going to last, right? What's objectively beautiful. And that's really shaped, I think, what I've done through the years. Is I try not to think about, maybe monsoon's the hottest thing right now, but I'm not going to be hot about it personally until I make something that that really blows me away. I'm going to be kind of reserved about it. I'm going to make other stuff I just know is beautiful, and always aiming for that.
Yeah, the passion for what you're working on, man, you got to have it.
Right.
Sorry, go ahead, bud.
No, you're good. I'm just saying, Justin needs to see it. He needs the proof. It's like, I feel like one thing I love about what you just said, Justin, is no matter how much hype is built about something, like, I feel like anyone should kind of see it for themselves before anything, right? So,
it's all experimentation too. And that's why I don't mind. People say, "Oh, do you get tired of people copying me?" Like, no, I mean, if I found a really good angle for something, then shoot. I mean, if that's what I started with. I started copying Pete Call and Ralph Davis.
I mean, doesn't everyone copy somebody?
If you don't, you got to start with someone else's ideas, and then as you grab the base, you start to learn your own ideas. But every good artist initially has to have an inspiration, right, from somewhere, and then they get their own voice later. So I think it's a great thing.
I agree, 100%.
Yeah. Go ahead, bud.
No, I was gonna say, where are we at on the agenda?
Oh, we're just gonna keep talking, man. The agenda. Yeah, man, the butterfly effect. Like you said, those couple little things that could have been different in the beginning of your hobby. If your uncle wouldn't have encouraged you to go more recessive over codom, if that gentleman down in Texas didn't give you the time of day to kind of walk you through it. I agree with you on that. Some people that are in the hobby for a long time, I feel like they get burnt out on that kind of stuff, and they don't give the customer that one-on-one time that they need. And the reality is, when you sell an animal to somebody, I'd like to believe that everybody wants that person to succeed. But then there's the other part of the industry that doesn't necessarily want that competition in the future. I remember rumors back in the day that people would damage a male's peen to where there'd be cartilage buildup inside it to where they were infertile at that point. There's all kinds of rumors of things that have happened like that, and I'm sure it's been other industries too. But yeah, we were a bit savage in the beginning part, and I'm sure we're still a little bit savage now with some of these people.
Yeah, I heard those same rumors. Yeah.
It's no longer a rumor because we just repeated it. Now it's actually fact, but it still could be a rumor. I'm not really sure anymore.
Yeah.
But all right, so jump around. I kind of want to talk about, the buildup of social media in the hobby and just different things, different tools that have come along that maybe we didn't really think much of in the beginning, but then developed into something big. One more thing I kind of want to bring up was the reptile ring. Mike Wilbanks had that project early on. I don't think many people thought much of it. And I want to say that was that 2010-ish? Was it before or after 2010 where auctions really big in the industry?
It was around that time. I couldn't place the year. Yeah, but we had a phase.
Yeah.
Phase.
A lot of people were really against it. Now, Ben Siegel did very well on his online auctions on Facebook, that set the bar, I feel. And Reptile Ring was a more refined version of that. A website, everything was. Ben Rennick used to use it. He loved that site. You put an animal on, it was guaranteed to sell. Maybe not for exactly what you wanted, but also in the process of that, you're expanding your customer base. People who might not have bought from you before buy an animal on Reptile Ring and suddenly say, okay, I want more of what you have now. So, little things like that have come up over the years in the hobby, and even Facebook, I feel in the beginning, people kind of shit on Facebook, people running their business on Facebook for reptiles. And then Facebook jumped in one day and said, hey, you can't do this anymore. And everyone's like, well, I'm going to go out of business. How am I supposed to run my business without Facebook? So, the metaverse, man, I've been watching some podcasts on it. I'm really struggling to comprehend everything on it. So people in the comments, please jump in every once in a while, throw a little insight our way, put something in front of MJ to let us all know about. But what do you think? No, don't? Well, maybe.
No,
maybe.
I don't like, listen, Dave, here, listen, Justin, me and Dave we're new at this as far as being together, and I don't like relying on comments from the live chats.
No? What if it's a smart comment? Okay, well then let's just turn off the chat and we'll just ignore these assholes and we'll just do our thing.
Thank you. That's the energy. Yes.
Is that it? Well, why? Because I called them assholes? I don't support this. That'll never happen again, by the way. Okay, so let me ask you this, Justin. How much do you know about the metaverse?
That was great.
Just enough to be dangerous. I am not a expert on the metaverse, but I understand what it is and I understand what they're trying to be.
Okay, so with the idea of the metaverse, like I said, do you think that where maybe right now we're stubborn and saying, hey, it's a non-existent product, I don't really want to do anything with it. There are a lot of big businesses buying into it. Nike, Reebok for shoe companies. I think The Walking Dead owns property in the metaverse. And it seems like most of this is pretty much just built between a big company coming in, buying a piece of land, and then developing that land to then sell to customers. The fact that eventually everything comes around, and more than likely we'll be doing stuff in the metaverse, do you think it's worth the risk for maybe somebody in this industry, maybe somebody bigger, to jump in, buy that piece of land, start developing it while it's cheap, so in the future we have it there for the industry?
I think so. It'd have to take somebody who's very forward thinking. It's hard for me to wrap my mind around that, being that I love the real universe. The
Me too.
Well, I guess it wouldn't necessarily be everything, but what if it was simply, I made the comment to MJ, I know I made the comment to you. Let's say another pandemic hits, and let's say we're not doing our shows, and we're not having that one-on-one experience with the customer anymore. What if there was a show through the metaverse that's a worldwide show for selling? You have your GoPro on your chest, somebody else is wearing their goggles on the other side, you're walking them through your facility, trying to find the right animal for them and having that one-on-one experience. They do the same thing with shoe companies right now, where I could pop on the goggles, I'm in a shoe shop, they're going to put it on my fake foot, and we're going to talk about it. Now, you're right. The one thing about metaverse is I don't want it to take over people's everything, but to assume that it wouldn't be utilized through this industry in the future seems kind of silly, seeing anytime we discover a new technology that can be incorporated in the industry in a way where we're going to be successful, we do so. Yeah. So, would you be opposed to spending your day with a GoPro on your chest, talking to people all day about your animals and having different sections of your day planned out for different people?
No, I'm not opposed to it, except for just the introvert in me would not want that in the real life either. But yeah, I'm not opposed to that idea. And I think that in whatever way it would help the industry, somebody's going to start that and do that. And then people will follow as soon as, proof of concept is shown. So I think it's inevitable, like shed testing, not to jump ahead to that. But in the end, it's like we need to just determine how to make it as great as possible, not block it, because there is no blocking something that actually just makes sense long term.
Can I say something? Can I say something real quick, Dave?
Oh, you say as much as you want, buddy.
The one thing I fear about this metaverse thing, or any kind of like crypto and shit like that, it's going to eliminate more interaction with humans. And I understand how we're faced of like shit like COVID, like that could happen again, right? But people will latch on, even when it's not COVID, to this comfortability of just not wanting to go socialize, and not like that's the whole world is leaning to not being social with people. Like if you start start noticing on things, people don't, it's becoming more of a thing where people just rather be at home and fuck with people on the internet or versus or the computer. That's why there's so many people that I've seen in the hobby that's yet to even go to a show. And I understand they have their own, fears of being out there, but you're doing yourself no good, by just staying in the basement or staying in your room or just staying in your living room, wherever you're at, and just not coming out. But I feel like people like that are betting for the metaverse shit. That way they're like, oh God, thank God I could be a hermit and it's okay. Perfect. I got an excuse.
We need hermits in the industry too. And besides that, just this conversation we're having via podcast right now was inconceivable 10 years ago, you know?
Very true.
So, I mean, and look at how it's such a wonderful tool now. It's like, why? It's eliminating people jumping on plane and talking face to face, but look, we wouldn't have the conversation otherwise. And how many people wouldn't? I'm just being devil's advocate here. How many people would we now get at shows digitally that would never go to a regular show? How many new customers can you reach that feel comfortable online but not in person?
What if in 100 years you can only sell snake via metaverse? You know what I mean? Like, what the fuck? Like, imagine if it gets that serious, like where it's like we don't like it is unsafe to even come near humans. Put on your goggles. That's the way to shop. Like, dude, that's scary. I don't like to think of that.
It doesn't sound good when you put it that way.
No, I mean, we're definitely looking at it from the negative side of things, where I think about a guy who maybe can't afford to come to the United States, always had a dream of seeing Justin's facility, and it just takes simply putting on goggles and setting up an appointment. And that's something you could do now without the metaverse. Don't get me wrong. We don't really need that. And, my extreme, hey, what if there's another pandemic, is just kind of an example of, adapt or die to what's going on. And one thing in this industry that I say to everybody, adapt or die. Things are always changing. Don't be the last one to jump on board. Get involved early on just in case it becomes a new thing. But when I think metaverse stuff, I honestly think just more of an engagement with a customer, a broader reach that, yes, we already have on the internet. But again, things are going to happen no matter what. We can't really fight it. The metaverse becomes a thing, it becomes a thing. And, how will we adapt to it, I guess, is my whole thing.
Can I time out real quick? Dave, you'll respect this right now. Guys, listen, we just had about 70-ish people tapped in. I don't know why there's only 35 likes. There's no way half the people watching like Justin. I guarantee there's a lot more people than half of 70 that like Justin. If that's a mistake, that's fine. Can we please, or Dave's beard? Come on, guys. Can we get the likes up? I really appreciate it. Go ahead. Sorry, Dave.
I'll be honest, likes to the side. I think we had 50 people live last week. I just figured we'd have a lot more than 70. So, how do we draw some more people in? How about everybody send this to 5 people that are watching now? Maybe try to get it up over 100 in the next couple minutes. Take a little pride in it.
We'll get it. Listen, this is an inner circle club. This is for the in. If you're not here, that's your bad. Anyways, sorry. I'm happy.
Oh.
Justin, you're killing it. Justin, you're killing it. Keep drinking that coffee. We're in a good place.
That's right.
No. Well, how about this? I want to jump back one thing, then we're going to jump forward to the sheds. So what was your view on things like the reptile ring and the auction sites in general about 7-8 years ago?
I was anti, even though I tried it. You see, I think that's what people need to do is they can have their own opinions, but they probably need to try it. I did a few auctions on my page, and I did it partly just to say, I need to see whether this really stacks up to be. I actually wrote a big article, and I still have it on my blog, about why I think auction sites are a bad idea. And the reason why is because, as you guys probably know, auction sites are pretty much ubiquitous in a lot of other industries, particularly animal industries. Like if you look around here, we have auctions all the time here in rural Georgia for cattle and, all kinds of livestock, right? But the difference in that situation versus us, and this took me a long time to kind of get to, is that they have a commodity, like a known commodity, which is a cow, right? And it's based on poundage, right, of that cow, right, to eventually end up at McDonald's or whatever. Or you buy a calf and you put it in pasture for a couple of years, whatever, and sell it. There's a known commodity with a known value. Now the value does change based on who is there, right? But when you get a bunch of buyers into that room or online or whatever, into that area, there is a known value that's kind of accepted, right? And it does change, right? But it changes within a certain metric. The difference with ball pythons or many species, I think, is that we have so many combos, and the prices are relatively flexible and arbitrary, right? Based on the feeling of the sellers and buyers. That's morph market. All it is a feeling of it's a combination of the feeling of sellers and buyers, and when they align, sales are made, right? When you bring an auction, you add an end date to that process. You say, listen, everybody who's here now is going to put how much they think it's worth, and when that time ends, right, that's when the highest one gets it. The problem with that is that at any given moment in the market, that's a certain likelihood that you're not going to have a buyer in the market for that combination. You have literally tens of thousands, like I said, of combos. And if you put up, say, I don't know, just pick a combo, stranger clown pied, okay, which obviously is pretty well known, really well liked. But what if you put it up there on a 5-day auction, and literally there's nobody online right now or right in the zone who wants a stranger clown pied? It's not a known commodity. It's something that somebody specifically is going to want or not want. And if those 5 days pass, then what you have is a bunch of people who don't want the thing bidding on the thing. Right.
Trying to take advantage and get a good deal on an animal.
Right. Exactly. Well, you get an animal. It's like, well, I really don't need this, but at this price, right, I'd buy it. Right. And as a seller, as a buyer, that's great. It's hard to be upset about that. And every so often you're going to find the perfect animal you want, and there'll be no one else who wants it. Because for auctions to work, you need two people, right? For auctions to work from the seller standpoint, you need two people to want it, right? Not just one. One person goes nowhere. So as a seller, I'm like, well, maybe if I had a bunch of animals like regular pieds, auction them away all day, because we know there's buyers for them. We know that there's a kind of a known amount they go for, et cetera. People know when they're getting a good deal. People know when they're not getting a deal. Fine. But if you want me to put a really high-end animal that with maybe a very specific buyer, I'd much rather put it on Morph Market for 6 months. And if I still am too high, I'm not going to make the sale, right? But I know over 6 months, I'm likely to find that, needle in the haystack, that one customer who really wants that combo, and I'm not trying to sell to a bunch of people who don't want it or don't care that much about it. So I'd rather deal with people who want my animals specifically. So that's why I think that for our industry, it's not the best tool, although it's fine. It's a great way for more inexpensive animals. From a seller standpoint, you're likely to get caught out pretty hard if you happen to put it up at the wrong time. There's just not a big enough market.
Yeah, of course, the reserves were one thing back then that would stop you from giving away expensive animals. But at the same time, the reserves sometimes scared people off actually bidding because they didn't think they were actually going to get to that number. Pros and cons. And like you said, not every animal is made for a site like that. There's certain things you put on there and certain things you don't. You just kind of have to learn along the way.
When money's tight to like a recession, like I'm trying to think of the time zone. Like you said, it may have been coming right out of the 2008 recession. I think there sometimes is a zone where people are like, I'm having a hard time moving some of this volume, and auctions start to make a lot of sense. And then then after a little while, they don't make as much sense anymore. I think.
No, for sure. I think there's a special time for it. And I do think that when we originally had auctions, I think it was actually a great time for it. Because like you said, we were coming out of the 2007, 2008 housing crash. So it was kind of a good time because the industry was still producing a lot. We were starting to do a lot more on the internet when it came to sales, a lot more through social media. It just kind of worked. And I think the reptile ring, there was a time and place for it. I think it was great. I don't know if it would do as well nowadays. I know it kind of tried to come back to life for a little while. It didn't really work out. It changed ownership. But I do think there's a time and a place for everything. And I do think that was a great tool for a lot of people. Without spitting too many numbers out there, I think Ben might have done like $1.2 million worth of sales on there over the year or two that he was on there. Wow. Now, maybe it took almost $1.7 million in animals to do 1.2. But again, it expanded his customer base. He found a lot of new overseas buyers that he was never exposed to before that went on there to buy and then kept on going on there and buying to build packages up. So like I said, things can be used for good, things can be used for evil. I do think there were some perks to it, and I do think there could still maybe be a place for it. But like I said, in the current industry, everything's going so well that I don't think it is good or bad. I mean, Ben Siegel's still doing his thing on his auctions, and I assume everything's got to be going well if they're still doing them.
Yeah, I feel the same way. If it works, it works, and that's how, I mean, that's like the capitalist way in a way. Is like, if it makes sense for buyers, great. And if it makes sense for sellers, then it's going to happen. And people are served by it. So, yeah.
I have a question for Justin, if that's okay, Dave.
If you have to.
Justin, a lot of people coming into this, I guess, I don't want to say a lot of your Patreon members, but maybe, I don't know, but definitely people are looking to hit what is going to be relevant in the next few years. And that's obviously what stuff that you talk about, the triple recessives and double quads, all the great stuff. But people who get into this, I feel like find out, too later than sooner, that a lot of stuff needs to be held back. And at some point, space obviously becomes an issue. Like, not too many people could create another building and start holding stuff back, right? But with that being said, people, I feel like, will get to a point where they might feel desperate with the stuff that they have that they can't move. And what I mean by that, like, they can't sell it. And I've even seen people trying to reach out, trying to wholesale things off, how do people manage that in your opinion? Like, how should people be ready for something like that? Especially if room is in essence, like, room is important. You want to go after these triple recessive projects. But there's that fear of you having stuff where if you can't get rid of it, what are you going to do with it?
Yeah, you're talking about specifically with projects that are going to have a significant amount of byproduct.
Yeah,
like
exactly.
Aren't the ones you necessarily wanted, but there's just a lot of.
Right.
That's a good question. I think for most people, you don't really have to do, even if you're going for triple recessives these days, you can find animals that are double for one and het for the other. We're not doing, very few people should be doing triple het to triple het or even quad het to quad het these days, because I know I'm selling animals that are, several steps along the way always. So hopefully, my point is that hopefully they would do it in such a way they wouldn't have tons of byproduct, but also, if you do have a fair amount of animals that you need to move out as far as wholesale or something, I mean, that's business. That's business. You have to create those contacts. People are out there. They want them. There's pet stores, wholesalers, middlemen. And I think a lot of people want to create a business, but they don't want to do the business side of it. Right. They want
and have to think. Right. People don't want to have to think.
The fun part, believe me.
Yeah.
But that's not business. That's production of an animal. Business is the creation of the infrastructure around it. And so by that's contacts. You have to get out there. You have to rub shoulders. You have to make, you have to shake babies and
not shaking. You can't.
Yeah.
Shaking hands and kissing babies.
Okay. Yeah.
But you said it.
Yeah, you know what I mean. But I think that's the part where a lot of people they want to create half the equation, and it's the fun half. And the other part is not as fun for everyone, and that's why I say 9. I think they say 9 out of 10 businesses fail. It's not the businesses, it's the people, right? So not everybody has either the knowledge or the willpower to do what it takes to create the business outside of the hobby or whatever they're interested in. That's tough. But yeah, that answers your question. I think we all need to work harder, and that's what we do. Sometimes we get a little tight. Sometimes we have a few extra animals, and that's a sign to me, not that there's a problem with the model. There's a problem with me that I need to, push out, expand my horizons, find the answers, and it's easier and easier as you get more and more contacts.
Is it safe to say that any successful businessman or entrepreneur out there is a good thinker? They're a good planner. Obviously, they know when to move, they know when to move, right? Like, and when there's something that needs to be done, it happens, right? There's no sitting on it. And I feel like, I mean, how many times have you maybe let go of something where you're like, God damn it, I can make a lot more money off this, but maybe it's going to the right person, and you're okay with like putting that project in the hands of somebody, even though you could have made a lot more. I mean, wasn't there times where you maybe like believed in that person and, able like, just because it made sense for you to lighten the load, but also it's not like you're giving it away, but you're basically investing in someone else in a way. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. I think from a business perspective, it's about, they say fail faster. You have to make lots of decisions. You can't be too afraid of it. And I think that you have, like, there's lots of times that I'll make a decision and maybe immediately I'll regret it, or maybe later I'll regret it a little while later, or maybe I'll regret it, or maybe maybe the best decision I ever made. I'm not going to know that till later. So I have to just make the decision. And every time you make those decisions and every time you get the feedback, be it immediately or later, you learn how to make a better decision next time. And so that's the beauty of this business, is we're generations and generations of snakes, years and years and years, and growing and everything. And so you can count on making some bad decisions, some poor decisions. Maybe I think a certain project is going to go far and it doesn't, or vice versa. But I learned by doing. And if you can get 3 or 4, I think, years in of making decisions and getting the feedback, your ability to make decisions becomes really great. And I do that all the time in pricing. And I'll sell things too cheap. I'm like, oh crap, I could have made an extra $1,000. Or I'll sell things for a lot. And I'm like, wow, I'm lucky I got that money. The next one's never going to move, right? Or sometimes I'll put it up there and I'm like, it's got to be worth this much. And then nobody buys it for 2 years, and I feed it for 2 years, and the animal gets, whatever. For all those reasons, that's all feedback, right?
Yeah.
I'm just honing myself, honing my sharpening my skill set. And so any business person just can't be too afraid to just say, I don't know the answer. I'm not going to know the answer till later, so I'm going to make a decision. That seems right. 51%, 49%, I'm going to make that decision, and we'll find out.
Yeah. One tough thing, like, and what you said is kind of perfect, but, when people come in the industry, they come in.
I'll be back.
You do you, bud. People come in because of the animals, and, it's people from all different backgrounds, like nurses and doctors and car salesmen and guys who work in fast food. Like, anybody who has a passion for an animal sees this from the outside looking in, wants a piece of it. And not for everybody. The reality is not everybody is going to be a complete breeder, or like, when I say complete is this: you could be the best breeder in the entire world. You could work with every species and you can get babies from every one of them. But if you don't know how to present your animals, if you don't know how to do sales, if you don't know how to talk to people, you're going to fail. In the early days of the hobby, you go to a big show and there'd be somebody there with that one-of-a-kind animal, and that breeder didn't have to do anything. He sat back, you gave him money, you took an animal, you walked away. Now you go to a lot of shows, and let's say there's 20 people with the same thing on their table. Why is someone going to pick one animal over the other than cosmetic reasons? So I do think it's kind of tough for people that come in this industry because, like you said, you kind of have to learn as you go, and people that aren't willing to learn as they go, or again, adapt to what's happening around them, be the best breeder in the world, it doesn't mean anything. You still have to be a good salesman. You have to be a good business runner. Like, you got to be able to do everything.
Yeah. That's why it depends on the person. The person's more important than the amount of money they have when they get in, or the animals they make, honestly, because we can always make better animals, but it's harder to change who you are than it is to make a better animal. I believe.
Yeah, I think, one thing too, and I always tell people, and, I'd like to say I'm a good example about it without patting myself in the back, but you got to embrace who you are. The moment you embrace who you are, you can create that into who you are as a person, what you do, and that's just who you are then. And that can be incorporated into your business very easily. I made the joke because I'm so good and bad at this. I grew a mustache, so I stopped printing out business cards for 5 years. And I ran a business for 5 years without business cards. But if anybody needed me, they found the guy with the mustache. And it was almost comical that I can continue running a business and do that. Display cases. You bought display cases from me back in the day. My product line didn't have a name. You had to know who the hell I was, or you found my King Snake or Fauna ad. Again, really bad at business, but it was working. I was surviving, so I didn't see any reason to put in any more efforts. And in all honesty, if I would have kept that mindset going for years, I would have inevitably failed. Even now, in all honesty, there's a lot of different aspects of this that I could be a lot better at that I'm just not. I'm aware of what I'm not good at. Let's see what I do about it.
Yeah. It's harder and harder as an industry, I think, matures, right? Because, like, no one would say that there's no money in the car industry, but it's a lot harder for someone to make money in cars than it would be, early on, right? Henry Ford, he had no problems on him because he's the only guy making them, right? As industries mature, market share gets taken up by people who are increasingly better at doing it well and catching eyeballs. So you have to be either unique or bring
Unique.
something to the table, or just long lasting, solid. There's a lot of different angles, right? And everyone's gonna bring their own angle to it. But in the end, it's not as simple as you buy something, you make something, and that's it. And not anymore. It's less and less that way, right?
One thing that my dad told me, because my family's all salesmen, they always have been, all car salesmen. I don't know anything about cars, so I'll never be able to sell a car to anybody. But
I bet you'd be good. I could see you being hella good at selling cars for some reason. I don't know why.
Here's the thing: it's all about connecting with people, a genuine connection, and that's what sales is. People come to you if you understand and know your product, and they like you, they're going to buy from you. If they don't like you as a person, you don't seem to know what you're talking about, they have no reason to work with you. So understanding your product, and you don't have to change your personality to make people like you. Just being polite is enough a lot of the time.
Takes you long ways. True.
The beauty of social media is that now people can know you without seeing you locally, and that's the beauty, especially of YouTube, I think. I was lucky to get onto YouTube as early as I did, but people, after a while, you make enough videos, people feel like they know you. And if you're just a random real person, that's good enough for most customers. They just want to know that you're a real person and that you have real animals and that you're not going to rip them off.
You probably gotten this, Justin, but I can't tell you how many times I meet somebody at a show and then their wife comes and goes, "Just so you know, I hear your voice every single day. Your voice is being played throughout the house." And I'm like, "Oh my God, I am so sorry." I'm like, "You must be hearing a lot of cuss words. I am so sorry. I apologize." But it's crazy, bro. Like, this is why I heard something from a podcast I watched, and the guy's intro was thanking people for spending their life with him. And that's basically what they're doing. It's like, dude, like, thank you for spending your life with me. Like, you're spending, like, this is what we're doing. And it's like, to think about it, that's so true. Like, I have people, a part of my Patreon page that has been supporting me for over 3 years. Like, they watch me all the time. Like, that's crazy to think. Like, it's awesome.
Super cool.
Cool. We want to jump into this lab testing on sheds. I know this conversation's had a million times. I know you've had it a million times. I always like to think I could try to bring something else to the table. This could be a complete fail. Pros and cons for you, Justin. Do you love or hate it?
I neither love nor hate. I think if I could choose to like make it go away in a moment, I probably would. Yeah. Just because of the unknowns of what post shed testing world looks like. When we're all doing it at 100% capacity, you know what I'm saying? I don't know exactly like the prediction of the future. These things are all so fluid, but knowing that, I'd probably be like, let's just keep things going. But that's not an option. That's not a technology, as you know. It's like I can't take iPhones away from the world, and we can't take podcasts. It's just people are going to go. So that being the case, I'm spending most of my time not trying to think about how I feel about it, but try to understand and predict what it'll be like, so that I can be a part of it in a positive way, ideally. And for us, part of that is Clutch, is building that shed testing into Clutch, and trying to deal with the next level of problems that might be presented with people faking results or removing results after they have shed tested and found that an animal is negative. Building those, codifying those things in via NFT, so that we can say, yes, this is the exact snake we bought, and we have results that have been run through shed testing that cannot be removed from the animal ever, so that buyers actually can trust results. So that's I'm trying to lean into making it better, is how I'm kind of dealing with it.
So when do you think, and this, we're gonna keep talking about it, but when do you think the industry became so trusting that we no longer started doing what we used to do when it came to, like, let's say you bought a snake from Ralph Davis back in 2003, you would get a picture of both the parents on there, a picture of the baby saying this is a 100% head animal, it came from this stuff, guaranteed. Mm-hmm. Eventually, one day, we just stopped that, and it was all we just trusted each other, and then we all started fucking each other over again. I don't know why we got away from that. I know it was extra work, but it gave a lot of people confidence in the beginning, and you can make or break somebody in the first 5 years in this hobby. And God forbid you bought an animal that was supposed to be a het, you put all your money into it. 4 years later, oh, I don't have anything. These are normals.
Back then there was, maybe 4 to 5 well-known breeders of the big dudes back then. You could buy hets from them and they would send you those guarantees. But they made so few snakes and the demand was so much higher that it really encouraged a lot of fakers out there.
Yeah.
And then I think only a few years past that, it kind of became a factor of when talking about when people stopped sending the genetic guarantees, it kind of became a factor of these animals are relatively well available. It's like, who can't make het pieds, at that point, because pieds were so relatively available at that point that it's like, man, you'd have to almost have to go to extra work in order to be a scam artist. Not that people didn't, but it was just much lower probability. And so people and also social media helped really change that too, because people would say, well, he's selling, double het clown pieds. And if I go on his Instagram page, I see a picture of a clown pied breeding. That's good enough for me, right? Yeah. So suddenly when you say like, well, this person exists, he's got a site, he clearly has a clown pied, or he stole a picture of a clown pied, right?
Right.
He's putting it out there. He's probably not ripping me off. And generally speaking, that was probably true, that he wasn't ripping you off. And it just got to the point where I think customers stopped demanding it. One day customers stopped demanding it for me. It was definitely easier not to make them. And so I stopped sending them. I still will if someone asks, but it's like maybe 1 in 300 interactions for someone to ask me for a genetic guarantee.
All right. So again, there's different things you can do to utilize the shed thing. What do you think, in your opinion, is the biggest negative thing that's going to be in the hobby because of this technology?
I think the biggest negative, I don't think there'll be any massive negatives from it, unless I'm missing one, which is entirely possible.
I got a massive negative. Can I say it? Yeah. I don't want to. Not that I'm Mr. Negative. But fraud activity. People will start picking up on shit. I'm not kidding.
Tell me how you see that happening specifically.
Well, for instance, right? Like, I mean, I know there was somebody for that I know that was passing around a fake NITO test. You know what I mean? And I was able to like kind of connect the dots on it, and Photoshop's everything, right? So I'm just saying there's just going to be people who are going to be able to, I feel like at some point might be able to pick up or figure steps ahead of the curve to maybe convince somebody that they have the proof of something when they don't. And they're like, oh, cool. You showed me what I need to see. You're good to go. Like that's
absolutely right. However, it's just as easy. I mean, you can print a fake, say, it's a little bit premature because we don't know exactly what these shed results will look like. For us, they're going to come back in system. They're not going to be a piece of paper. It's going to come back in system, at least initially, and attached to the animal itself automatically via NFT. So that hopefully that'll help. But the reality is, if there's any sort of printed document, then it absolutely could be faked just as easily printed. However, that's no different than somebody printing a genetic guarantee and giving it to an animal like they've always been able to do. That's really exactly the same thing. The difference now will be with shed testing, the person can receive the snake, and after the very first shed, they can also send in a test. What about they can wait 3 years only to have the breeder tell them they missed the odds, And so I think, yes, there's definitely ways to be fraudulent, but I don't think it's any more fraudulent. I think actually the consumer has a little bit more defense against it now.
What about the pricing with things, right? And what I mean by that, when there's obviously proof, well, fuck it. I'm selling this shit what it is, even though it's technically a 50% het. Sure. I have the proof that it is what it is. Some people might debate that. You think that might be a problem for some people to sell snakes even with the proof? Like, you think they're still going to have to sell it at a het 50% het cost type of thing?
I don't know. The market will decide that, whether or not they trust it. That if they don't, then the answer is absolutely. If the market, generally speaking, does not trust the results, then there will have to be a discount.
But okay, like there's false positives and false negatives. What about like false these reports? Like that same shit could happen, right?
I believe there is a level of possibility there, but it's mostly human error. So it would be either your error in sending in the wrong shed or mixing them up on their table or whatever, or the tech's error when they're actually putting the samples in the little pipettes. If they got off a row, they could theoretically mess up a bunch of tests. So human error is always going to be a part of it. So there's definitely an error there. I do believe it's more actually more reliable than, say, regular PCR tests. So, for example, a NITO test, I think they're if I understand, they're pretty good. But you're still looking for a single like NITO bacteria or NITO virus in a sample, a large sample. Like when I say large, right? I'm talking about just enough, like a little tiny swab, right? But you're looking for a single bacteria. Where with the shed tests, that gene is either present or not present in every strand of DNA in that test. You're not searching for the needle in the haystack. All you're doing is saying, of all these needles in the haystack, what do they look like? So I think it's more reliable than most. Yeah.
I just thought of a different level of fraudulent activity that could happen with this too. Because people who, like, let's say the breeder, I go get this stuff tested and I get the test results back. And I know that it's not het DG, but quote unquote, it's 66. It's still 66%.
Yeah. That's what we're trying to fix with our thing. So you can't in clutch, you're not going to be able to remove a result, even if it's negative from your animal.
But hold on, but they could do testing without clutch being involved. They could do it like
I can't help that. You're right. No, that's totally
right.
However, the buyer can still do the test as soon as they get the animal. So again, they're not waiting 3 years to find out they've been screwed.
And also another thing too, especially if you're a member, like if you're a Clutch member, did I say that? Are you a member of Clutch? Yeah, right. I guess subscriber. So if you're a Clutch subscriber, you should make sure you're only looking at tests through Clutch, right?
I mean, it would have a certain level of extra accuracy, I believe, as far as just knowing that the user did not modify it.
But I mean, but I'm talking about like
doing it wrong, though. Yeah,
I'm talking about like if there's these projects that like you're coming out with and Aussie and like these next level projects that could easily be followed, right? Like, and someone else is claiming to have proof that they have het of this, but they're not a part of Clutch. That could be an indicator. Like, well, hold on, like I need, like it's your safe route is going through Clutch for this kind of proof, right?
Cool. If it was that ubiquitous at some point, that'd be cool. But
at some point, right?
We're pretty far from that point of view. I'd like to think that there's still a lot of different avenues for people to.
I don't know. Am I wrong or right? But I feel like this thing that you've developed here, Justin, is only to attract the high end breeders. Or am I wrong?
I think it's built for that because it built it for me. However, we'd like to find a way to make it so that it's pretty good for anybody. But initially, I would say most people will find that it's really meant for people who are really pretty particular about their genetics and their lineages, which a lot of people aren't.
Because I guess a lot of people are concerned, and I don't want to say the poor people, but the ones who are able to come into this with limited money and really bank on these hets and afford these hets, they are not going to be affordable at some point. And that might be a problem for people coming in on a budget. Am I right?
Yeah. One of the nice things we have right now is the fact that POS hets are pretty inexpensive. Especially some breeders will sell a whole bunch of POS hets for just a little bit over, the regular price or whatever for a non-het. And so that does give everybody, some people a way to get in and get lucky on a very shoestring budget. And theoretically, to an extent, that might go away somewhat with shed testing. However, I still think there's going to always be a class of snakes that are kind of on the borderline for a breeder, whether it makes sense to test them at all or just sell them as POS sets. Once you look at that $60 or 120 panel, whatever, that amount of money, sometimes you're like, for a 6 week wait only to find out it's not het. If I don't want to spend the $120, I think there's going to be a line we find that's worthwhile. So.
Can you? We got a super chat question real quick. And this is from good old Billy up north in Canada. What up, Billy? Yeah. I guess Clutch will only work for U.S. residents. for the genetic testing? Is that a question? Yeah, that's a question. Yeah, question mark.
Well, it's nothing to do with clutch actually, because it's a regulation with CITES, because the CITES documents cover, of course, ball pythons and any other CITES regulated animal, and it's that animal or any part of that animal. So even ball python poop, you cannot ship across the border legally, unfortunately. But again, it had nothing to do with us. The limiting factor is that the vendor who's actually doing the shed testing is RGI, reptile, rare genetics industry. And they're based out of Texas and Richmond, Virginia right now. And so to get shed to them through our system or Morph Market or any other vendor is going to require that the shed be in country already, or you have to ship it here with paperwork. So yeah, for Canada, they're going to have to figure something out, either licensing with the RGI or, put a bunch of animals down, over via CITES, a bunch of sheds over via CITES to get them tested at once, a big blood batch.
So do they own like the sole right to do that in the hobby right now? Because I would assume anybody could buy the technology and do it.
No, for sure.
The leaders.
Yeah, for sure. And in fact, some of the, a lot of the tests they have were received only because the results have been published. Piebald, lavender, partially ultramel were all tests that have been created by other people, and the results published, and then the RGI is literally just developing a test based on that scientific paper. Anybody could do those. Like anybody who's got the technology or the technical know-how can create those tests. Now they have since then gone on and created several of their own, which they've paid for, like process. Things like clown is the major one, but I don't think that's the only one. That's the only one that's coming to my head right now. Clown, I know they're working on DG and Hypo and some of these others, but they're literally paying for the tests to be done to find those mutations now. And that, I don't believe they're going to publish those results. So anybody else who wanted to make that same test would have to do so from scratch.
Okay, so very well. I mean, like you said, with all the CITES, there will and can be a guy in Canada doing all this as long as he has those research papers in front of him, right?
He'd get those genes from the research papers, and he could theoretically, if he had the know-how, hire people to find other genes additionally for Canada. It's out of my technical wheelhouse, but RGI has a great technical expertise at that, and I know other people do too. So certainly every country could do their own version of it, should they have deep enough pockets and the willpower and desire to do so. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, because I don't know enough about it. I know I recently had a conversation with somebody this past week that had made the comment that they were going to be buying the technology for themselves, making it so they can offer it to the industry. And hearing them say that, the impression I got is that more people will be doing that. And in a market where there's more competition, that'll actually drive the price down on tests. And suddenly you'll have one lab able to do it for this price, another lab for another price. So in the future, it might actually become a very competitive market in the industry where, where it seems like an arm and a leg to do it now, in the near future, it might not be that bad.
Yeah, and the technology gets better and better over time. So it may become less and less expensive to create the tests in the future. I mean, it was not really even very economically feasible just 5 years ago to do what we're doing now, but now it really is. In 5 more years, maybe it'll be, anybody's happy to jump in and try their hand at this sort of thing. So I don't know the answer to that, but yeah, it could be very competitive. So
I have another super chat here question. So RGI working with you, but also Morph Market, couldn't that be a conflict of interest and hurt clutch?
I don't see it as a conflict of interest. It's certainly just all it means is that shed testing is available to both platforms. And so their users have access to it because I know Morph Market has their own version of collection management. And then our users will also have access to shed testing. And then, basically whatever platform you like for yourself personally, you can get shed testing involved. So I think it's a great thing. I wouldn't want to be the only one doing it. I mean, it'd be cool from a competitive advantage, but it's also a lot of pressure. I'd like people to be able to stay on the platform they prefer if they want to.
And I've asked you this a while ago, and I'm curious where you're at now with this question. And you being obviously a fellow chondro lover now, how soon would things need to be happening in the right direction with the ball pythons in clutch for you to start implementing other species like chondros or whatnot?
Probably quite a while, because I feel like we have such a big runway of ideas that I want for the ball pythons. That's hard to imagine that we'd have the development time to think beyond that. But who knows the answer? But it's not on the near radar, I would say. I'm still very selfishly doing this for myself. I'll be honest with you.
Obviously,
I really just want this to become my dream of all the things that I wish I could be doing in my business right now. And it's great that everyone else can do that too. We'll be able to do it too, but it's very selfish for me. And when I finally get the exact program I want, I'm like, all right, I can't think of how to make this really, much better than like, okay, fine, let's do it for something else now. And we'd have to bring in somebody like Gary or Bill Stiegel or something.
I was gonna say hire somebody who knows all
know how to really fine tune it for another species. I don't know enough about it. I know everything about ball pythons, obviously, but that's the limit. I've been very specialized.
Oh shit, Bill Stiegel's cheap, bro. Right now you pay the guy in red wine, you're good.
Yeah. Well, great, perfect.
So you know what you need as a little side project, bud? You need a Shark Tank version for the reptile industry where you have people come to you and present their ideas, because it seems like along the way it's been a lot of good people you've collaborated with to actually do some of the projects you have.
Yeah, I'm very fortunate. I'm very fortunate that a lot of ideas come along the way that I didn't think were good ideas too. But yeah.
Yeah. And you're talking about being selfish, same thing. Like I love Shark Tank, honestly. A lot of these inventions or things that come on, it was people did it because it made their everyday better. So they'd assume it would make somebody else's day better. So the same with you, you say the word selfish, but it's no different than a lot of other inventions along the way.
Yeah. You have to start with the need, right? And then you likely will have needs that other people also have. And then once you have found a way to create something that meets that need, then it's all about serving people. How can we get those things to more people? Like you're only ever going to be as successful as the number of people you serve. If you serve 2 people, you're going to get certain, 200, 2,000. We have, I think, around 14,000 individual customers now for Canova. And if there's a measure of success, it's that, right? Because we know that 14,000 people, many of them several times over, have been, served by Canova, and in a way that they're not unhappy with, hopefully very satisfied with. So,
I mean, isn't that the recipe to being a successful, not only breeder in the ball python game, but anything, just anything.
Yeah,
that's the recipe. Do it for yourself.
Yeah.
Like do it for yourself.
You serve the others. You serve your family. You serve your friends. You serve. You give more than you take, and if you give more than you take, you get more than you give. So
I agree with that.
I love it.
Oh, let's talk CRISPR for a minute. Something that none of us know shit about either, but I do kind of like. Yeah, I know, right? So I did watch a podcast on this ahead of time, and we're going to put the links to this afterwards. But it was a gentleman, I believe his name was Travis Wyman, I want to say his last name was. He sat down with Palumbo, and they had talked about this back in 2022. One of the links that I sent both you guys was University of Georgia implanted the albino gene into a brown anole to create a albino brown anole. They injected it right into the ovary of the female. There's actually a video on YouTube where you can watch them surgically open her up, expose the ovaries, put the gene in there, so on and so forth. Now, where right now there are definitely going to be a lot of limitations. I don't foresee anything like this coming up in this hobby or any hobby for a long time because of it, but I wouldn't say it's impossible just considering how far along this technology has come with the shed testing. What 2 years ago or 5 years ago might have seemed impossible, right now very well could happen. I want to talk about the advantages to this hobby and just a lot of things that come with it. What happens when the day comes where, you no longer have to call an importer to get this new mutation that might not be genetic out of the wild? what happens when, for the same amount of money that maybe it costs you to get a new ball python, for a lot of them been 100, 150, $200,000 out of the wild, if you could work directly with the lab to create a pattern for a color you like, and I keep on saying blue crayfish because blue is a very hard color to get in a lot of species, but the advantages and disadvantages of that, like, you know, maybe right now it seems impossible, but in a few years it could be readily available. And you can do it if you don't mind, MJ, but there's certain things within CRISPR technology. You could buy an eBay right now, and I want to say the kits cost like $100, $200. Now, this podcast with Travis was really good. I would really love to talk to him just to see, you know, his point of view 2 years later, having the original conversation. But would you like to see the day came where we can genetically engineer? Another example before we get into it is glowfish. Glowfish were created in a lab. Somebody saw the opportunity to incorporate them to the pet trade. They own a patent on that zebrafish, and there you go. They have something that they now sell readily. Now, maybe some people don't believe in this or think it's wrong, but where it's not being incorporated in our hobby already, it is being incorporated in other hobbies.
Yeah, I don't see it from the ethical point of view as much as I see it from, you know, to me, the fine line would be that it would not create any sort of quality of life change for the animal. That would be the line for me, right? Like if we were making, I wouldn't want to make a version of a spider that spun. I wouldn't like that, you know what I'm saying? But if we could do it in such a way that the animal didn't know it was a different color and thrive the same way, then I wouldn't necessarily be opposed to it. It doesn't mean I like the idea though, because part of what I love about this industry, and this may be just the old-fashioned version of me, but I just like the fact that I feel like we're taking what nature gave us, and yeah, we're manipulating it via, you know, unnatural selection, right? Like we talked about. But to me, I like to be able to tell people, it's like, yeah, this all started naturally, its own version of naturally, right? All happened naturally in the wild, and all we're doing is we're stacking these things. We're choosing to breed these animals together, but they're all the same species. I've given this pitch to, you know, hundreds and hundreds of people coming into my facility over the years. Like, you know, these are not venomous, right? They do bite, but they don't only bite their food. And these are natural mutations that come from the wild, and they're the same. They're not different species. You know, they're the same species. I like being able to say that. I don't like the idea of being able to say we created these in the lab. We manipulate this ourselves. But again, my feelings don't really matter, I don't think, in the end. But
they don't.
But I have a little bit of a hard time with it emotionally.
Well, and you know, there's a million different ways to look at this, and you know, I respect what you're saying on that. You know, okay, so I was talking to somebody about just importing ball pythons. Like, what happens tomorrow if we can't import another ball python? You know, what is the industry going to do? Now, those animals, now here's the sad thing about it. People are still going to collect those animals because that is a business over there. Just, they won't go to the pet trade anymore. They'll go to the skin trade. And that is the truth, because whenever there's an over collection of any species out of the wild, when they do not find a buyer in these other countries, they do go to the skin trade. You know, now here's the thing. I'm a herper, man. I walk the woods anytime I get a chance. I flip rocks. The idea of finding a mutation excites me. Now, I was lucky this past year. I found an albino tadpole. Not the coolest thing ever, but still something really cool. You know, there's certain genes that seem to pop up in a lot of different species. Albino is a good one to talk about, but it's not impossible for these genes that maybe you see in one species not to be in another species, and where eventually we could get lucky on those right two animals finding each other in the wild. The technology is really just speeding the process up, and maybe a little more on the conservation side of less is being collected, even though I think the same amount will be collected, it'll just go towards a different industry.
I like it. You're an enabler. You're giving us the you're taking us right out of that ethical quandary. I appreciate that.
Dave's in his zone right now. Okay, Justin, Dave's in his fucking zone. I love it.
It's not that it's a zone. It's just, you know, and me and Justin, like I said, me and Justin know each other for years. Very few long conversations. When I visited the facility, probably the longest me and you have ever got to talk at any period of knowing each other. very much enjoyed the conversation. This conversation that I'm having right now with Justin is one I've been had for 4 months. It's been in the back of my head. I've been taking notes, been watching podcasts, because, again, there's so many things that you have done that have moved the hobby forward, thinking outside the box, like you said, finding a need that somebody didn't realize they needed. And that's why this is our conversation right now. The ethical, or I can't say this word, we practiced it earlier for like an hour, I couldn't do it, but ethical side of things. There's so many ways you can spin words. And I feel like in any debate, a good salesman could win any debate, even with only a couple facts. So, where you have your hangups and there's gonna be a lot of other people have their hangups, when someone else comes along and like what I said, well, what if you're saving animals' lives out of the wild? What if you're taking collecting, off the table? And, where certain things we got to wait for something to pop up. What about species that we can't even get out of the wild that will never see mutation, and we have to wait for it to randomly happen in captivity, kind of like what crested geckos have done in the last 25 years. 4 mutations have popped up in crested geckos over the last 25 years from an original stock that was like 450 animals out of the wild. So it was inevitable that mutations were going to pop up, but that was one thing they brought up in this other podcast. What if you could give an albino crested gecko to that community? What they could do with it, with their red lines and their Harlequin Dalmatian stuff, that's something that they may never have, because we will never find that in the wild, because we are not collecting these animals out of the wild anymore.
Well, I can definitely see that argument, especially for things like albino, which is in such a high percentage of species. You feel like it is inevitable in almost any species that it'll exist, like your albino tadpole or albino people or whatever. Piebald is also, I think, relatively common among a large number of species across genus. So to me, I think that if you made the argument that all we're going to do is take a gene, a mutation that was bound to happen eventually, no matter what, and maybe speed it up a little bit, I have an easier time with that than I have the idea of we're just going to. I mean, maybe I don't understand how it works well enough, but we're going to create something that I think we would never see. But who knows? I mean, I don't have a problem with glowfish now that it's done. I think it's the doing part that maybe gives me a little squeak.
Like, we'll never have a ball python that's going to glow in the dark. I don't ever think we'll get to that point. But certain conversation I have with other people, spring a certain idea. Now, and we had Junior from JMG on last week, Jeff Jr., and he brought up something that I had never heard before, that it just kind of shows how young our hobby is and, how much can change. Koi fish are being bred for, I think he said, over 100 years, maybe even longer than that. There are no mutations in koi fish. That was literally taking a brown carp and line breeding years and years and years and generation to get where the koi industry is at. And if you pay any attention to the koi industry, it is insane the kind of stuff they're doing. And to think that all originated from one animal that looked normal is mind-blowing.
So they really filter through thousands and thousands and thousands of fish and keep the teeniest percentage of them are the ones that you'll actually ever see. The vast majority of the ones are normal looking, even now, from 2 crazy looking fish, because it's not, I don't think it's Mendelian genetics. I think it's some other factors involved.
Yeah, I think it's polymorphic traits, or I think polymorphic for that. I do respect any species where there's more line breeding than anything, because it's a little more challenging. It's a little more thought gets put into it. Just simply putting a recessive or a codon together, it's not mindless, but you already know what you're going to get.
Yeah, it's not really about, you're right. It's more plug and play. It's not really about the art of wanting to improve something over time. It's more, it's more about speed and less about patience. Yeah.
So again, because I'm scatterbrained, bud, I want to go back to the one thing really quick with the shed thing. Now, here's a disadvantage or possibly a disadvantage, but also an advantage for somebody else. You put a decade into making a triple recessive. You have to go the long way to do it. And then somebody can then maybe go and just buy a triple head or quad head male and make his own quad heads, breeding into normals, essentially, with very little overhead. And because of that, it would cost them so much less than a guy like you to produce that animal with the lack of time. He's not going to charge what you charge because he just doesn't see the reason to it, because it was so easy for him. with that possibility, which I know a lot of people have already thought about that, I have thought about that. Do you think people in the industry, maybe yourself, would maybe stop selling triple or quad hets and either sell them as normals into the pet industry or hoard them back for the fear of somebody else catching up? Because in my opinion, that technology is going to make things move so much faster in the industry than ever before that it might be tough to keep up for some people.
Yeah, great. It's a great point. So there's two factors there. One of which is the scenario you just outlined is not how it seems on the surface. Mathematically, it's not how it seems on the surface. Okay, so for example, let's use an easy example. So say somebody buys a triple het from me, DG Clown Pied, okay, and they're going to do what you're outlining here. They're going to breed it to, say, 5 girls, right? Say they get huge clutches, they get 10 eggs each. All right. So that's 50 animals now that are POS triple het, right? They're now going to spend, if they're going to go for all 3 genes as of the current spend right now, they'd have to get a panel test on all of them. But say they only want to test the girls, right? That'd be the smart move, right? So they're going to test 25 females at $120 each, right? Now I'm not a math genius here, but that's some good money, right? If we just say that much. You can do that much faster than me.
120 times 50, $6,000.
Yeah. So what's more?
It's legit. I got a calculator. I'm not messing with you.
Okay. Nice. Okay, so $6,000 to shed test just the girls. Okay. Now, what we know the odds that of how many of them are going to be triple het by the math, right? Which would be 1 in 8, right? So you see, 25 girls, half the clutches, you get 1 in 8. You're going to get 4 theoretically, right? 3 actually, 3.5, a little more than 3 females. So you're going to get 3 triple het females after spending $6,000, and it's wasting 5 clutches. See, I just don't think in the end the math doesn't really line up well.
Well, what would that visual triple recessive cost somebody? Let's say if I was tomorrow wanted to buy a pied clown DG male.
Sure.
What do you think that'd run me in the industry today?
50 plus, probably. Yeah.
What do you think a triple het male for that would cost right now if I was going to maybe shop it?
You could probably go in for well under 1,000, I guess.
Yeah. So if I'm under 1,000 into this, and let's just say I can breed that male to 10 different codon females that year, like you said, with your odds, I might get a very low percentage, but also in the process, I'm going to be making single, double, triple het animals. So where maybe only 4 to 5 at best are going to come out for the triple like I want as in a het, I'm still going to have a variety of other things and nickel and dime my way into it because my investment now is $7,000 to produce a bunch of random hets.
Right. And when you go to breed, if you go to breed that same triple het male to the triple het females, you get 1 in 36 to make the visual. Yeah. I just don't see that as a shortcut that's very different than what exists currently. The only difference is you only keep potentially of your 25 girls, you might only keep 10 of them, right, that are at least double het or triple het. And so the better over current was you wouldn't have to keep all 25. You'd keep down to 10 maybe, but your odds would be the same as they currently are. You just know which ones are het, right?
Can't do anything about the odds. Odds are always going to be against us or with us. It's just the way it works. Let's just say, well, here's the reason I think the way I do. So in 2003, my girlfriend bought me a het albino and a het pied male from Ralph Davis.
Nice.
I didn't have any money. That was such a cool thing to get back then. I was going to breed it. I was going to hold back all my females. I was going to start a breeding program that way. With that logic on why I had to go that route is why I asked the question of other people who think like me that might not have the means.
People already doing
that, right? Go that route.
Yeah, people are already doing that. The only difference with shed testing is they're going to have a little bit more outlay of money, and they're going to be able to keep less animals for the same result. That's the difference.
again, I hate giving people ideas. I'm probably hurting everybody right now. But so as more people jump into this market and it becomes more competitive and a shed test maybe becomes cheaper over time, maybe at that point there'd be more of a fear factor where at $120 a piece, probably not the biggest thing to worry about at the moment.
Yeah. No, there is definitely a factor there to be aware of. I just don't think it's the boogeyman that like it seems like on the surface, but certainly a cheaper shed test would make a difference. I think the biggest boogeyman I see from the breeding side of things when it comes to shed testing is people like, I say like me, but just more serious breeders who say using the same scenario, say I have a clown pied that's 66% het DG, okay? As of now, I have to really kind of conservatively breed it to maybe a DG or two. I don't want to go all ham in the paint with that animal to all my triple hets because I might just get burned, right? Big time. So now I have to kind of conservatively breed it to a couple DGs. If I prove it out, then the next year I'm golden, right? I'm going to run them everything, but now I know it's triple. I can do that with shed testing. That buys me at least one full year. And what that does is it creates the velocity of breeding is increased by an unknown percent, but it's increased. And I think one of the best things we have going with ball pythons is the velocity of these combos. It's fast, but it's reasonable. If you get too fast, we know this from corn snakes and some of the retics that prices cannot hold long term. And so I feel like it's important that we'll find out, but it's important that the velocity does not come at such a pace that people feel like they can't keep up or the prices are too volatile. That would undermine our industry.
I agree with the volatile pricing.
Yeah.
I just hear MJ say something. I looked away. Hey, MJ, by the way, you don't have to be so quiet. I know you did all the talking last time. I know you're trying to make this like me the star of the show today, but you just, you be here, man. I already missed your voice. You haven't said shit in like 5 minutes. That's the weirdest thing I've ever seen in my entire life.
I got to say, this is awesome because now I understand my guest on why my episodes are, well, let me say our episodes are so fire. I'm listen, I hear stuff you're asking Justin out of how many episodes have we had, Justin? What, for like over 4 probably, right? You would think.
Yeah.
And this is why Dave Levinson is such a crucial asset to Unfiltered Reptiles podcast. I'm having fun. I'm here rolling weed. I'm just doing me, buddy. I'm literally listening. I'm soaking it all up. Trust me, I could come in and take over, but then we'll probably lose some followers. I think there's people here to want to listen to you, bud. Not gonna lie.
I appreciate that. And honestly, like I said, I've always wanted to have this conversation with Justin, but I didn't want to have another Justin conversation.
Hey, well,
conversation. I love this kind of conversation.
Can I say something though before we answer this, William? I hope William, you will. William normally drops like $100 super chats. I'm gonna take the $10 one all day, buddy. But I hope there's something I can do to make you that more excited to be here, a part of this podcast. Okay. William, Philippe. Okay, what do we have here? Dave, it sounds like a horrible idea. Wow. If you add hold on. If you add an albino trait, so essentially a broken gene and adding it to a wild type animal genome, essentially breaking it and making it more defective.
Okay, how about this? William's a little bit of a purist, and I respect William for it. You're right. The albino gene might not be the best one to bring up. It's just the most common. You're right. It comes with blindness. There's definitely a lot of things about the albino gene that are a negative. So no fighting on that, but just a gene in general, like Justin said, pied deer, pied catfish, very common in the animal world. I've seen pied almost everything I feel in animals. Sometimes I think albino is just because it's noticed more. A lot of people, like I'm on a lot of reptile ID pages or just animal ID pages on Facebook because I want to see what random people are finding. And people are taking pictures of things that are pretty obvious, but they're mislabeling it. They don't fully understand what they're looking at. So there's a lot of other mutations we could bring up. I agree. Maybe the albino gene is not something we should try to put into a lot of different species because it comes with its faults. But that's all I got to say about that. you gotta broaden your mind, man. Things are gonna be changing fast after this conversation, William. It's adapt or die. We've talked about this.
He has a part two. Hey, $20 in the bucket though. William,
Okay, keep it going. Keep it going.
part two, respectfully. So, say an Australian animal like your blue tongue. Wow, dude, I feel the energy right now. Okay, so say your Australian animal like your blue tongue skink, if you add albino to that, could be determined to the bloodline because you can't get any new bloodlines to diversify.
Okay, here's the thing. I think Australia is a really good thing to bring up, and that is actually something I wanted to talk about on this podcast. So we could segue into this. It's kind of perfect timing.
I love you,
So
William.
as you know, Australia is closed. You know, you can work with Australian species. We have Australian species, but we don't get the mutations they have over there, and we never will legally. You know, people try bringing them to the zoos, everything else. It just didn't work out. I love William too. He's one of my favorite people. So long story short, I had heard something years ago, and I got to do a little more research on it, that horses, cows, cattle, the farming industry in Australia, it was legal to import and export sperm. Like that was the loophole, something they can control. You know, I've had conversations in the industry with people talking about the possibility of milking snakes in the future. You know, taking just, you know, all the natural things out of it. I mean, we started incorporating an ultrasound, which kind of takes away the natural cycling of animals. It's us figuring out more how to do it regularly like they do in the farming industry. There's a lot of things I think we could take out of the farming industry, the nutrition side. A lot of the medications that we use in the reptile industry came from the farming industry. I think we paid more attention to what they did. We could actually strengthen our hobby, but that's the whole thing. What if we could just import the sperm from another country, maybe some of the closed borders like that, to bring these mutations into this industry to be readily available in the pet trade? You know, a lot of these are kind of selfish things, and some people might say, oh, you just want to make a profit. I don't think, now maybe when some of us get into it, you know, we want to make a profit because money goes into it. But, you know, like Justin said, this is an art form. You know, we have all these traits in front of us, and we get to mix them up in a certain way to see what happens, what the patterns are going to do, what the colors are going to do. And we figure it out as we go. I don't think I'm a selfish person for wanting everything out of Australia. The Kick brothers did all those amazing blackheads back in the day. I would love those hypomelanistics, all the stuff from that. When it comes to skinks, I'd like one of every mutation for sure. You know, if CRISPR technology is what in the future gets us there, I'm not opposed to it. I want more colors on my palette, and I always do. And, you know, I think that's one reason why ball pythons are what they are. You know, we're spoiled. We get 10 new colors or patterns practically every year because I think we have 300 baseline genes right now. This has been going on for about 30 years. I don't remember what year the first albino was discovered, but that kind of really got the ball rolling in ball pythons. So for 30 years now, we've had 10 new mutations every year. That is why ball pythons are doing what they're doing and just kind of staying a little bit above everything else. Constant stimulation, constant new colors, constant new genes. It keeps people interested. And I don't foresee that changing anytime soon, but incorporating some other mutations in other industries actually will help them out. You know, the same example I brought up last time, that big crested gecko deal out in Vegas. Like, they took a species that readily has been traded for $200 to $600, $650%, really nice, maybe $850, and they took a chance. They put a very high price tag on this animal, and people were all about it. They sold out in seconds at this show and had an amazing weekend. Crested geckos have been around for 25 years, but mutations put them on the map. It made investors from the outside look in as, wow, this is now an investment species. So really, just with this idea of CRISPR technology, is I do think that, you know, you could fight the technology, you might not like it, and maybe you don't want mutations within the species you work with in the industry, but it does strengthen the what's the word I was looking for? Just the demand for the animal when you actually have something to build on. You know, like I said, I like my polymorphic traits. I like line breeding skinks. I like just trying to pick out little characteristics. Man, would my job be a whole lot easier if I had the baseline genes like they had over there. So that's really all I'm coming at on this. I don't know. That was a weird little rant. I think I blacked out halfway through. But
you got people in the live chats very aroused right now. I will say that.
That's fine. I'm just here to arouse people. That's really, honestly, I mean, if you're on my Facebook page, you know what's up. Oh, let me take a look. I wrote all these notes while I was working today.
Can I segue? Can I say something real quick?
Segue, yeah, do a little bit, man.
All right. While I've been here letting Dave just do his thing, and by the way, this is the Dave Levinson I've been waiting for. God damn it, killing it.
It was wrong last week. I failed us.
Right. It's okay. It doesn't matter. At least you didn't fail Justin. That's all that matters.
I told Justin afterwards how bad it was, though. He didn't believe me. It was awful.
Okay, Justin, coming to you as not only as a fellow Clutch supporter, but I hope I made that wait list. I hope I made that first phase. I don't know if I did or not, but let's just say I came into this with some serious concerns. First and foremost, are you getting real feedback yet? Like, are you getting real questions from people that you maybe feel like really have the best interest in supporting you, but they have concerns? Are you getting any of that yet?
We got a lot of that from Tinley when we were showing people a lot of questions.
Like
and
what?
I would say the first two, the big two questions we got was number one is, can I sell my snakes on here? And if people loved it, what they saw, they wanted to see if they could sell the snakes on there, which right now we're not doing that. Two, the big question we had, this is kind of funny, can Justin see my snakes? Are my snakes private? And so because of my association with it, for a lot of people, people are like, well, I don't want Justin to know exactly what I'm doing. And the answer to that is no, I can't. I mean, nor do I care to. I'm not building this for that. It's not some big spy tool. And in the end, I wouldn't want to be on there if people could see my snakes. That's part of the gamemanship of this. We all want to, do our things in secret and, throw them to the world when we're ready. So it's all on AWS. It's, fully encrypted. You're going to have, what is it? I don't know what it's called. Double layer logins and everything. And your stuff is your stuff unless you want to share it. We're trying to make it so you can share a lot of the stuff if you want to, but whatever you want private is private. So, and then to answer your question even more, the first beta users started today. So we plan on starting on Monday, but we're in two days behind, and the invites went out. And I'm sorry, MJ, you're not number one. We're not in the first phase because it's not quite ready for prime time. These are people who are they're falling on their swords here to test out something that's
whoa, hold on. What do you mean? Wait. I'm not falling on swords, is what you're saying?
You're right. I'm trying to preserve you for everyone else for a little longer. Oh, there he goes. He just fell on it.
So do you think that with a website like this, because like you said, people want their privacy, they want somewhere where they can go and see everything they're doing and not spill the beans and everything they're working on?
For sure.
Are there certain applications with this app where it'll be more interactive, almost like a social media where people can maybe comment, not so much comment, but interact with the breeder in such a way to discuss kind of things they're working on, so on and so forth?
Definitely. Initially, what the big part of it is that's public is everybody on the system can have their own incubator page, and they can make that completely public if they want. So the thing that we started out building for me, the incubator page, is what we're giving to everyone. Everyone can have that incubator page, the clutch page, on their website, or other users can view it, but only the clutches you make public, right? So you can hide half of them and show one, show whatever. So once you've done that, every animal that you've made public will have its unique link. Every clutch will have a unique link. So you can share on Instagram an animal or share a clutch or whatever. People can go in there. They can add themselves to a waiting list for a specific animal if they want a specific animal, and it just notifies you, hey, this person would prefer this. So we have really robust waiting lists in there where people can pre-qualify themselves. So they'll say, here's what I want a DG clown pied, right? And I want it to be a female, and my budget is $500. Well, when I get that request, I'm going to be like, sorry, I can give you a double head, triple head, whatever. But that's a way for me to know if waitlist entries are qualified or not. And people can also remove themselves. They can view all their people, all the wait list requests they've made and remove those if they find it somewhere else, or if they change their mind or whatever. So it's a way for breeders, hopefully, to have really good wait lists, and they know that the people, if they're still on the wait list, hopefully they're a qualified buyer, and if the wait list actually have more meaning and more use for that reason. So social aspect we're building in. Yeah.
Whatever, dude.
So I know, you're probably your main target right now is the ball python industry, but this is meant for all species at this point, right?
It'd be great if we could do other stuff. I know some of the industries really rely on waiting lists, like the chondros, like the ball pythons, not so much. We have enough, we're making enough, there's enough going on that you just kind of wait till we make it kind of thing. But the chondros, I know you guys have been keeping lists for decades, of people who are waiting for different things. And so,
not me.
Sorry. But no, there's a lot of social aspects we still want to add. One cool idea that we have, it's not going to be phase 1, 2, or 3, but we want to make it so that if you ever have a clutch, you can you add the clutch to clutch, right? You put in the babies, you ID them however you want, right? It's part of the process. Then you can send that clutch to a friend, completely un-ID'd, and they, in their own clutch, can just drag over the genes that they think it is. It shows all the genes and the pairing and everything, and it sends it back to you. And it doesn't change your system. It just shows you their opinion, right? And so it's a way for me, hopefully, to be able to identify clutches for like my Patreon members or other people. Because when people ask me to identify a clutch, what I get is like 25 unlabeled, terrible photos, right? And I don't even know what genes are in the parents. It's going to automate all that. And so I could literally get the email. Oh yeah, okay, I think this, and send it back to them. Again, they don't have to go with my judgment. But it's a way for people to get feedback, which I think is something that is really wanted and needed in this industry.
Yeah, I've always, again, a little pat on the back. I've always been kind of like an idea guy, but doesn't have the resources to execute ideas, I guess you could say. I want to say it was probably maybe 10 years ago. I was a little drunk in the lobby at Tinley, and I believe, is the guy who started King Snake named Jeff? Does anybody know the answer to that?
I never knew him.
It might have been Jeff. I don't know. But I ran into him downstairs in the lobby, and I said, it'd be really great for your webpage if you had a feature where people can enter what they're looking for, and when that animal does become for sale, they can get an email or a text message. I'm sure I talked to John about it too with Morph Market years later, but I just thought that'd be great because I remember back in the day, I'd wake up and go on funnel all day long looking for a certain thing, hoping I was going to find it. Same thing with King Snake, scrolling through all day long, making sure I didn't miss anything. Right. And then I don't do it for 4 hours. I come on, my thing popped up, and then someone bought it already.
Current technology, that's so doable. It's so doable now, and not even that hard. That's a no-brainer.
Dave, you had a question for me, and I was quick to answer on this, Justin, and correct me if I'm wrong. But you were never out to make your own like market to sell snakes at all, were you? Or at one point were you maybe trying to create something like that?
No, that's not been aside from just selling them on my own website. That's never been a project I've worked on.
We can't ever. I mean, was there something that prolonged you coming out with Clutch?
Yeah. Honestly, it was not doing it initially because we didn't have, hadn't found a good partner for it, like Sebastian, because he has he and his team have technical know-how. I'm just really an idea guy myself. And that plus the fact that we did not initially plan for it to be this. We planned for it to be just for me and to be small and be really one little thing. And then that thing grew into another thing, and that thing grew into another thing. If we had started out like, here's the big picture, we're going to make this, we probably could have done it twice as fast. But we just incremental, and now we're fully big picture. But it's taken us a while to get to this place.
Yeah, I mean, once you get the base down, I mean, even Morph Market is always making changes, always making improvements. I mean, once you have it established, adding little things along the way are just going to be bonuses for the people already using your software.
Right. Yeah, that's the goal. Great foundation. You give real value to people that they find they actually want it and use it and prefer it. Then all you can do is pile on the value, make it better and better. So I can't wait to get to that place.
Since we're talking about value in people, Justin, I'm curious on how you delegate that. And what I mean by that is obviously a lot of people like myself want your attention, and they like when there's things that they have, like I do when I have ideas, I call you like all the time. I'm like, Justin, oh my God, but I feel like
No.
but don't do that. I'm just saying, anyone out there, but I'm just saying, but are there people that you feel like you owe them like the time of day because they're a part of your Patreon page, or they've been so much of a loyal customer to you to where like you have to give them their time versus other people? Like, I mean, how are you delegating stuff like that? And I'm sure this has to be throughout the years. Like, come on.
Totally. I mean, there's definitely people that are longtime friends and colleagues and, Patreon members or just good customers that I definitely feel an obligation to, because they're all the ones who made me successful. Other people have been frustrating and irritating and conned me or whatever. There's two groups, right? And there's people in the middle, but I can't tell you how often, I'll be walking out the door and somebody goes, "Hey, can you identify this clutch for somebody?" And I'll be like, "I'll get in the morning." They're like, "Well, they're a VIP Patreon." Like, I just feel I owe it to these people. Maybe I don't even owe it to them that much, but like I feel like in the end, like it's so important to me that I give more value than I take. It's so important to me. I'd rather err on the side of oversharing, and sometimes it does bite you when you overhelp. But
what about you, Dave? I mean, I have to ask you, just because I mean you do have a lot of time that you spend at shows, but I mean, you're very informative, but I feel like you're very smart and you're very strategic on how you let some information out. And I'm curious on how you delegate that.
Honestly, I think it's a case basis. I can't just say generally one way or another. I definitely like to inform people. I do like when I hear about somebody new coming in the hobby. I like to try to show them the ropes early on, things like that. But I don't really know how I delegate that kind of stuff. A lot of times it really has more to do with the topic and the person. But, like Justin, and, it's really a challenge with being known in the industry, Justin, more than most. The more you're known, the more people want to reach out to you because, they expect you to know the answer. And that's fine. I'm all about it. I'm sure Justin is too. It's keeping up sometimes. I'm sure at one time or another, even Barczyk turned off his phone because he couldn't keep up with the random people that just simply wanted to ask a question from him because there was a connection they had to him based on seeing him on YouTube or something like that. I try to give everybody as much time as possible, and I also try to neglect people like crazy. So it's a nice happy balance, I guess you could say.
It's funny you bring up Barczyk. Justin, is there much of a connection between you and Barczyk at all? That I mean, at all? Like, I'm just curious.
Well, I mean, there's a historical connection in that I bought a lot of really important early snakes from him that really changed my life, including that first clown. And then there's a friendship built from those early years on. I wouldn't say that I have a close friendship with him now, but I consider him, I'm friendly with him. We talk every so often. Yeah.
Is that due to business that you had with him in the past, maybe, or like what? I mean,
I would say business in the past, and and I respect his drive and what he's accomplished over the years. And the fact that he's gotten to where he has and has the following he has, the amount of work he's put in, that's like mad props. No one can ever take that away from you.
My thing with Brian and you, though, I feel like the props with Brian is like mad props on developing the persona and the position you're at with YouTube and the platforms, right? But mad props to you. Mad props to you, Justin, on carrying the morphs where they're at right now. But it seems like you guys went in two different directions. It seems honestly, Barczyk was trying to get more views, get paid more on the YouTube side, and you're more diehard. Let me make the fucking next sickest morph, right? But
couldn't do what he does, and I'm not sure if he could do what I do or not. I think he did for a while, but I can't do what he does. That's clear. I don't have the persona.
It takes the personality, like you said. It takes the personality, and I think also Barczyk was in. And he saw something that a lot of people didn't others see. But what I'm saying is, I've had Barczyk on my show, and he's one of the first people to openly say about this ball python breeding game being, a pyramid scheme. Like it's built to where you're gonna fuck yourself, and it was tough for me to hear. I was like, well, what? Like I don't. But I really feel like it relies on the person and the personality, of course. And I'm curious because I've yet to ask you this and how you feel about that, as far as that being said by somebody who's been a pioneer in this ball python game. But I don't think a lot of people know that the branch has bridged off into a different direction. But I just want to hear it from you and see what you thought about that.
Yeah. Well, I would say that there's the term pyramid scheme refers to a scenario where you have money flowing up a pyramid. Usually it's mostly from these multi-level marketing companies where, if you bring somebody in, you get a cut of the next person, and that person brings in one, you get a smaller and smaller slice of a bigger and bigger pie, right, as it goes. Right. And then the word scheme, of course, has a very negative connotation.
Yeah, nasty word.
Right. Well, a schemer. Who wants to be scammed, right? Or a schemer, So totally, yeah, I get it. I think any business is a pyramid, though. Period. I mean, that's probably, maybe I'm not opening my mind far enough, but I think any business is going to have a situation where you have people, especially if it has some sort of product line, you're going to have people who have a large amount of market share and are taking a disproportionate size amount of value because of the amount of people they serve, right? That's what market share is. And anyone who has a smaller slice of market share is trying to take a larger slice, right? And they're likely trying to move up that, say, pyramid, right, of value towards the top. So what's different about us that makes it feel more pyramid-y is the fact that those people who are trying to move up are, to an extent, encouraged to buy from people who are further up from them versus creating a product from scratch themselves. They're incentivized to buy the next ingredient from the person higher than them. And that theoretically trickles all the way up to me, but not necessarily. It's a many peaks to this, as anybody who creates a new project is a new peak to the pyramid where everybody has to go to them until it becomes part of the larger whole and lots of people have it. So I think, without complicating it, I'm saying it is pretty complicated. But it's not a scheme. It's a pyramid. A pyramid.
It's like you admit it, but then you're also correcting it. It's just not a scheme. It's something that is a pyramid that's all built off your personality, though.
Right, but name me any business where lots of people can get in and everyone makes it to the top. There's no business like that because it's steeper and steeper, especially with the more the business is mature. So it's the fact that a lot of people will dream of making it in the business and don't is not in any way indicative of the ethics or quality of the business itself.
Yeah, and I think another point to make on that is, in my opinion, when it comes to the concept of, okay, it's a pyramid scheme, it couldn't just be, okay, there's one breeder at the top of the pyramid. Like you said, there's a mutation. Who starts at the top until the price comes down to here? So, if you want to go ahead and take every single gene mutation in ball pythons and, call it their own pyramid and talk about who was at the top at one point and who's not anymore, maybe. But, all this industry is, something catches your eye. You have a level of investment, and supply and demand has a lot to do with it too. Just because you're in love with something, it doesn't mean other people are going to be in love with it. Something that you might like, a smaller buyer pool might like.
Right, that's where marketing is in. That's people accuse me all the time of just being a great marketer, and I was like, well, if sharing your passion and having other people agree is marketing, then yeah, I'm all about it. That's, and I've always taken that opinion on the way. If I had some mutation that say people didn't want to buy it, or it wasn't worth to other people what I thought it was worth. Like I wanted 5,000, no one was going to pay over 3. Well, I can either come down to 3, or I can try to show them that I'm right and they're wrong. And if I'm good at that and I convince them, then they may pay 5, or maybe I'm the one who's wrong and I'm going to have to budge on my side, but that's what marketing is. It's just persuasion. That's what sales are. It's just persuasion. And I hope to persuade people by their hearts and their eyes, and get them along a journey with me. But I hope that other people are doing the same, and they're going to bat for their projects. If Huffman is the next big thing, then don't tell people, show people, right? I don't see it, but I'm also not working with it. I can't see it, right? Show people, yeah.
Yeah. I was gonna. I'll go ahead. You got something, MJ? Tip of your tongue, or are you about to say you're done? You got sleepy eyes, man.
No, are you? No, are you kidding me? No, I'm good. I got something I want to ask Justin. I just don't want to interrupt you.
No, you're not interrupting me because we're doing this together, buddy. Go right ahead.
Right. Quit. Okay, you just hug me while I ask this. Justin, I'm curious because there had to be a certain point in your YouTube career where you crossed the line of looking so awkward on camera. With all due respect, like you became more of a natural. You became a natural after a while, and God bless you for doing that, because I know that's not easy to do. Like I felt like you had something in your position where it was up to you to fucking put yourself out there, or just be this fucking person who's an introvert, right? But what was it that made you go ahead and just say, fuck it? Do it, Justin. Like, that would encourage you to want to go ahead and put yourself out there to where now you look a lot more comfortable. You look a lot more like a natural. I don't think anyone maybe who just start following you would know that at one point maybe you were uncomfortable in front of a camera, but now that's not the case. But that's not, obviously doesn't happen overnight, right? But what was it? Like, what were things that you have that helped you with that?
Well, if you see that first video of me when I was 14 years old or whatever, that's all that you need to know about how comfortable I was on camera. I don't know. I think I just did it. And the biggest blessing, people look at it as like a curse, but the biggest blessing is not having an audience early on.
Yeah,
because you can add all your material and you don't have that many eyeballs on you, and you can just be bad for a while. That's okay. And I was, for sure. But people didn't think I was bad, but I look back and I was thinking I was just terrible. Right. But I didn't know. And at some point, I think, early on, you kind of fake it till you make it in any business. And I wouldn't say I was faking it, but I was definitely knew that I was not in the same league with a lot of the people that I really respected in the industry. I was not in the league with my idols like Barczyk and Ralph and Pete and the Sutherlands, and I'm sure I'm forgetting a bunch of them, but they were all rock stars, and I was a pipsqueak kid who just had a couple cool snakes and was obsessed, right? But I didn't have the knowledge base. And after, and all I could do is I'm going to get out there and I'm going to make videos about what I do know. I'm going to be super awkward at it and I'm going to mess up, but I'm going to talk about what I know a little bit. And it struck a chord because at the time, not very many people were sharing much. Information was pretty hard to come along at that point. And I even had the audacity to create a series called Pro Tips, even though I was pro only by maybe the most narrow of definitions. But yeah, along the way, it came along, and along the way, I just started feeling like, hey, I really know what I'm talking about. I've done enough to know what I'm talking about. And it starts to show, I think, in the videos where I'm like, I don't have to be a persona of the person I think I ought to be. I'm just going to be the person I've become through these years of having the persona, which is the guy who does know, most of this stuff. And I have my own perspective, and I don't have the right answer for everything, but I have my answer, and I can own that at least. So,
damn, yeah.
I think, the social media thing too, not everyone can be successful with social media.
Oh,
Some people can put on a fake persona, and make a living off that. People do that in Hollywood. People do that in a lot of aspects of life that are in the public eye. Justin, you coming on and being yourself is just the way it has to be, because you coming on and being a character, saying certain things, clickbait this, clickbait that, it's just not who you are. So you doing you is exactly how it's supposed to be. And, kind of a little bit like I brought up when we talked last time, for me, outside looking in at your videos, the importance of Rafi when he helped you out for a little while there. I felt there was a big jump in your videos at that point. I thought not everything about it was better, but you could see the difference in what you were doing.
Yeah, Rafi's a great cheerleader. He is a great person to bring you out of your shell. He's a hype man, really. And I say that in only the most positive sense. And so when he came and did a couple of videos for me after doing Nerds, not only did he do it just a bang up job, he also like I tend to be really kind of low key, and he kind of got me like, oh, this is really cool. And we got good views on those. And I'm like, I don't have to be quite so in my shell. I can be just a little bit more out there, and people appreciate that when, you put yourself out there a little more. So it was a very positive thing for me when he did that.
No, I think that's a good way of putting it. Raph really just lifts you up, or kind of like, I was doing t-shirts back in 2011, and I think my first t-shirt, I was going to do a line every year called Paint Jobs. And I wanted to take the coolest mutation produced that year, put it on a t-shirt, have it as a one-of-a-kind tee, X amount of printing kind of thing. And the first one I did was, you remember Nerd's animal? I think it was called Angel Dust. Might have been Angel Dust. It was like it kind of had like bleached out sides, little white. I got a picture laying around. It also might have had more of a satanic name to it, and I could be mixing up with another snake right now. But Rafi's one of the guys who got one of the first tees. Now, yeah, he was doing things with Nerd at that point, so I'm not surprised he wanted it. But, he wore it at the show. He said how much he loved it. Like you said, he really brought up your spirits. And, I did this past Atlanta show for Reptilian Nation, and he was out with his wife and kids. I was pretty fucking excited to see that guy for the first time in a long time.
Yeah, he's super guy.
Yeah, and you still talk to him today, don't you?
Yeah, he comes out here every couple of months and hangs out. We just spend the day together. He's into cars a little bit, like I'm into cars a little bit. And, we have a lot of interests that are, I wouldn't say he's into snakes that much anymore. He always wants me to show him the first, a couple cool things. And he's always like, oh, that's crap. That's crap. Because he has a objective eye, which I don't have anymore. My eye is influenced by what I'm trying to make and what I think is expensive. He's like my uncle again. And it's nice to have that sometimes.
That's fantastic.
Feedback.
So talking about, a minute ago, we were talking about, setting your prices, what you believe the worth of your animal is when you put it up. What was that animal that you made along the way that you challenged a price on it, put it out, maybe what might have been considered too high for other people, and somebody bid on it immediately?
I would say that happens pretty often.
Was there that first animal that let you know that you could do this?
Not really. I would say I slowly found it. I wasn't the kind of person who just like shot something up there, like we're going to go get it. It's, that's not me. I usually try to like feel it out, but for me, I think with the Batman stuff, the spot nose clown stuff, for me, of course, Rennick made the first spot nose clown that changed. Rennick has a massive amount of credit in my book for making that animal. It was truly a game changer that was unrecognized by almost everybody for what it was. Everybody saw that and saw it's a busy clown at a time when everybody wanted blade clowns, right? And it's like the opposite of what anybody wanted. I saw the animal and I thought I was blown away by it, just blown away, because I'm like, here's something that is going the opposite direction in a way that we've never seen before. Who knows what that could open up for the future? And I ended up buying that original girl from him, that original one he made. And I changed all my breeding plans as a result of that animal. And that's what created the Batman and all that stuff. So for me, like when that animal and that project put spot nose back on the map, I had to price it at a place that spot nose would never have thought about for, for years. But, the animal is the one who made it work, right? Not me. It wasn't my choice to make it more expensive. It was the animal that sold it, right? With red stripe, the Pompeii sold the red stripes, not me. All I did was show the animal well, and then that's the end of it. So whenever I have an animal that I say, this, I can't charge what I want for this, or it's just too cheap or whatever, it's like, well, I just need to go back to the drawing boards, find out what animal is going to make the project desirable.
Yeah. I made that comment to you when we were hanging out, like just how perfect timing it was when you made the leopard clowns, because the industry was so obsessed over blade clowns already. You made a perfect blade clown every time by adding leopard. And that was huge because that's just where the mindset was.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't heard anybody ask about blade clowns in years at this point. Like, I know there's some in the Inchy project, but like, you don't really hear people going out of their way to find blade or super blade clowns anymore.
Can I say something?
Spot nose changed it. Yeah.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Justin, I want to hear this. I'm very curious. Shout out to Marshall Mendez. What a guy. Oh my God. Marshall. You guys both know Marshall. Justin,
Sure.
Especially you. I was at Marshall's place last year. It's about a year ago, November last year. And he was showing me a bunch of his ultra male clowns, and they looked so fucking clean. And I was like, why? I was like, what is it about these clowns that like, why are they making them so clean looking? He's like, oh, I think there's blade in them, or there might be super blade, but I don't know. Nobody really cares, so I don't really market it at that. I'm like, what's like, why wouldn't you? I'm like, and like, it almost upset me because I have blade. I purposely have blade, and I keep it back, and I work with it, right? So he has it, and I see it, but he does not. When he sells it, he doesn't say he has it, and like, what the hell is that all about?
Well, for some people, it's become a liability because the industry has come to value the heavy patterned clowns so much that if you say there's blade in your animal, they think, well, when I use that animal, potentially half of my clutch is going to come out extremely reduced pattern, and that's the opposite of what the industry wants right now. So it'd be better to not say anything about blade. You might sell the animal faster. That's
God, no way.
Yeah,
that is fucking sickening. So that is sickening. That is super sickening.
People get tired of patterns, but I don't know.
Here's the thing: everything comes back around eventually. Remember what Justin said in the last episode. And MJ, you're going to use this. Now we're going to do this on the regular. I'm going to bring up old episodes all the time. We only have one old episode, so it's all about Junior today. But Junior made a comment about species that have no pattern typically aren't like a big deal in the industry because pattern's so important in mutations. So with that same logic, where you're talking about a gene that's reducing the pattern down to nothing, people don't look at that as something they can build on anymore, and that's why people got away from it. So that's really
G-stripe, patternless. G-stripe are trying to bring it back, but we're working hard to do it. It's not an easy task. Champagne, of course, is very hard, of course, but you can use blackhead and leopard and inchy. There's a few things you can do, but it's a relatively narrow path out of the patternless, but it's there. When you have another gene like spot nose that makes everything more patterned, then it becomes a staple.
Yeah, and we talked about this too privately. The logic behind certain pairings. Specials were meant to make crystals. Russos were meant to make the whitest ball python possible. Spot noses were meant to make the Powerball. Powerball ended up being wobbly. People didn't want anything to do with the project anymore. We're now reinventing the idea of how we do things because we're taking subtle mutations, putting them into the clown project and other projects, and just making these animals that we couldn't comprehend. Like the special clown in my eyes is unbelievable. You could throw a special in a group of normals and tell people to pick one out, and they'll probably ignore the special the whole time.
Mm-hmm.
So we're starting to see now what these really subtlety traits are doing with other mutations that we had never thought before because, again, certain things were meant to do certain things. That logic is out the door now. We're doing everything.
It's like these fusion restaurants, right? Like he's like, oh, this particular spice is supposed to be with this type of food only, but like have you tried this other way?
Oh
Like,
my
have you tried
God,
it a little
he's
bit?" And so-
here. He's here. He's here. Marshall Mendez. He's here.
I can't tell Blake from normal. It's great.
I hope, dude, Marshall, listen, I didn't even think you'd be awake right now. I'm so sorry. I have nothing to say. Dave told me to press this topic for some reason about Blade. I had no agenda behind this. I'm sorry.
Because I got a lot of hate in my heart, buddy. I just want to do this with you.
Please.
So
Help.
how about this, Justin? And now this is another random one when it comes to just modifying animals to create a, let's call it, genetic piece of artwork. Hybridization within species. I see your face. I feel the same way. I'm not saying I'm for this. I'm just saying I want to talk about it.
Okay.
You've probably seen, maybe, I think I sent you the picture. Somebody did like a Woma python, so like a 5-gene ball python, and just made what looked like brand new ball python morphs. Corn snakes and colubrids, there are certain mutations in colubrids that are actually hybridized from other species to then make, let's say, there's a few corn snake mutations out there. I'm not going to say which ones, but it was other species bred into corn snakes. And then so many generations of corn snake bred back into it, you wouldn't even realize that there was anything else put into it. In blood pythons, we have the batik. Now, what if 10 years ago, somebody bred a ball python to a batik, and then multi-generations bred ball pythons back to it, taking that batik gene out, and the next thing you know, we have a monsoon ball python. Now, I'm not saying the batik is a monsoon by any means, because one's recessive, one's codom, but what if, the day comes in ball pythons where there's a mutation in another python species that you just simply want in it? Now, certain times hybrids make stronger animals. Now, with the liger, not the case, but with the mule, a lot stronger, meant for farming, but also a sterile animal. So now, I'm not saying we're doing it now, but this whole conversation today is what we're doing in 10 years. Do you think there could be a part of the industry where a designer ball python could be a hybrid from another one or another species of python?
I think it's possible. Not what I would want off the top of my head for it to happen, but again, if you could get past the prejudice of it and eventually get it back to where it didn't seem like a hybrid, right? Enough generations. The question, I think, would be selling those animals in those intermediate stages when you do have a lot of kind of politicization against it.
Well, there's always going to be people that don't like anything or everything, and that's fine. I respect everybody's grind. I might not do your grind, but I think there's something in this hobby for everybody, and that's why there's so many people in this hobby. And I am on hybrid pages on Facebook because I want to see what people are doing. I remember on Nerd's webpage way back in the day, The Wall, which was the original Woma ball python cross, blah. He even had a reticulated python ball python cross on his page. Have you ever seen the Bat Eater, where it's the retic and the Burmese python?
The Batman name came from the Bat Eater because I thought it looked so similar.
Nice. So, like, I think Hypomelanistic from Burm went into the Bat Eater, and this one guy overseas makes these, like, forest green pythons with, like, hints of, like, yellow in them. Really a beautiful animal. So, yes, I understand crossing species isn't good, and I do think there needs to be transparency there. So, now where that transparency might not be in the colubrid community with certain mutations they've passed off as corn snakes for years, even boa constrictors, you have your purists, guys that want to stay Central American with your mutations, don't put it near anything else. But then you have people that'll take a Central American mutation and breed it to a Colombian, and a few generations later, people aren't even talking about it. They're all boa constrictors, very closely look, similar body structure, but now we're also talking about animals with a very different size. And then I'm sure that conversation is going to go into Garrett's territory and talk about dwarf retics and breeding the mainland mutations into the dwarf retic stuff. But these things seem to happen in the hobby, and the Angolan ball python is something very close to a ball python when it comes to body structure, very different pattern. And I don't mean to start rumors, but I did hear years ago somebody had bred an Angolan to a ball multiple times and created what he was calling a new mutation. We've never seen another one like it since. I've never really seen it marketed since, but it very well can happen. And with the Angola, or with crossing Angolan in, it would only take a generation, maybe two, before you wouldn't even know Angolan was in there.
Yeah, that'd be. I can totally see the potential there for that. I think as long as we're getting a good, I think as long as we feel like we got a lot of traction in ball pythons, and there's so much we can do without doing that, maybe we might not see it much. But if we ever came to the point where like, man, we've kind of done what we can do, we really need something different, the motivation would suddenly be even stronger, I think.
I think, now your comment before, like when you brought up the Huffman gene, okay, show me what Huffman can do and then I'm going to want it. What if that's what happens the day comes in that where somebody does a hybrid where they're like, hey, don't you want this? And people are like, yeah, I think I want this in my life. Now, yeah, I'm not a big hybrid guy. I'm into blue tongue skinks. Hybridization of blue tongue skinks is a big no-no. You do it,
Dave.
you get ostracized. I'll be honest, I've never even done it, and I got kicked out of that community just for having a single animal unknowing that it was a hybrid. And then when I found out, what was I going to do? Not have the animal anymore?
Hybrid of what? Blue tongue and what?
Well, I had a friend at the Ham Germany show, and he reached out to me and said, there is a patternless northern blue tongue group here. How bad do you want it? And I'm all like, we don't have anything like that I'm aware of. I wasn't a big computer nerd. I was like, I want it. And I spent a lot of money with my partner at the time. I want to say $9,500 for the 3 animals, and I was a pizza delivery boy. So that was a very tough buy. Purchased these animals, and then when I started becoming more interactive in the community for blue tongues, I told people I had these things because I thought, look at what I have. How cool is this? And they're like, that's a hybrid between an Irian Jaya and a northern blue tongue skink. Very frowned upon. I've had these animals for 10 years. I've never even made another one. They're just kind of here. Now, that's a disservice to my partner who also invested in this project with me. But the attack was so vicious that it almost steered me away from working with them. But also, I didn't plan on working with them once I found they were hybrids. Now, I do believe in that industry, there is still room for something hybrid to be done. I am going to breed those animals this year, but with full disclosure, I'm breeding them to an axanthic blue tongue skink that also appears to be a hybrid between an Irian Jaya and a northern. Craziest thing about that is literally the same thing with this one thing. Somebody took an Irian Jaya and bred it to a northern, and they made a patternless on accident. So you took 2 animals, one's an island species, one's a mainland. Made a mutation. What are the chances? Somebody in the United States out of St. Louis, a guy named Jim I'm friends with, bought 2 skinks randomly. From the looks of them, they both look like they're hybrids. He bred them together, and it made an axanthic animal. So I am going to breed that known to that known just to do it. I don't think that should affect or change everything else I've done. But again, that community was so anal about certain things. Again, I consider myself a fairly nice guy. I am fucking hated in that community, blocked in all the groups. I don't get to interact with those people at all anymore. I'm like on my own little island. So again,
you're off for it.
Oh, what was that?
Sounds like you're better off for it.
Maybe, but blue tongues were one of those species that I've been working with for 10 or 11 years. I think this actually be the 12th year I bred them. And when people 5-10 years ago asked me what I wanted to be remembered for in the industry, I used to say my blue tongues. Not anymore. I still kind of do, but I'm just not part of the community anymore. So if I'm remembered, it'll probably just be for being a villain over anything at this point.
Yeah.
I know, that was sad. Glad I got to share that with you, bud.
Yeah, that's a real downer.
Well, how about this? 2 hours and 20 minutes in, we could do this for 3. But you wanna keep going, MJ?
I had a fucking. Can I say something?
We're not done yet. I'm saying let's get our last couple questions in.
I'm over here fucking slap digging it, letting Dave just take all the glory of this, and I have questions that involve both of you.
Can I say one thing then?
Yes.
When you're done, I got one more question for Justin, and I'll be okay for today.
Wait, but what do you mean? Does Justin have to leave? Is Justin giving you a rep? Is he like saying he's over it?
Well, no, we can keep going. I was just thinking it's 11:30 there, and I'm not trying to be rude to Justin. I don't think he's up past 11:30, Beth. No, you're up pretty late, actually. You're a night owl, aren't you?
I'm sorry for my co-host. I'm sorry about my Justin. Listen, my co-host is not on this kind of mental level. He's, he thinks that, like, okay, he wants a hot dog. He probably doesn't want relish. How do you know that? That's what Dave's on right now. He doesn't know. He just doesn't know.
He's
So
making
anyway, back what I was saying, Dave. I think this is important, Dave. If I could finish. Can I finish?
Cut me off last time, you son of a bitch. Don't forget.
I probably did. I love you, Dave. Okay, listen. One thing I'm very happy, glorified, stoked about is Justin Kobylka coming into the Chondro game. Okay, but for somebody like yourself, Dave, and you're like, I'm okay on the Chondro game because you've seen a lot. But what do you feel like the effect of somebody's impact on the ball python game, like Justin has, could potentially have on the ball python game? And this is something for you to answer here, Dave. I'm curious.
Well, the problem is, it's a different kind of designer. Even some of the best chondros we've seen in the industry have not been able to be reproduced, and their offspring is sold based on the fact that there was one really nice animal on the way. Not to, criticize in any way, but, you're selling the dream of an animal hopefully developing into a certain animal 3 to 4 years down the road, where with what Justin does right now and what a lot of us do is you have what it's going to look like. You don't have to wait and hope it's going to be something special. You know what you're buying. And I do think that's one thing that's an Achilles heel for the chondro community. Again, they do have the albino. I remember Floyd back in the day. Hopefully Floyd's still alive, and I think albino's popped up in a few of their collections. But, with that community too, they seem to be more purist. And really, the basis of what your animals are worth is all based on your lineage. So if Justin comes to the table and creates a lineage for himself that people want to be a part of, I could totally see him doing great things in the chondro community. But I think the chondro community is built very different than the ball python community. So it would probably take him 20 years of breeding before he would have anything of significance in that community.
I think you're right. Yeah.
And how do you feel about that, Justin? I mean, like,
you're probably right. I mean, I think the same reason people get in ball pythons and think the same thing. It takes some time, and I definitely realize that. In the end, maybe if nothing else, I could just show that I'm enjoying it and loving it, and just open up to a new audience. That's my hope.
Now, I will say though, Dave, Justin has invested in a whole wall. And what I mean by that, like a whole wall of awesome, beautiful focus cube. By the way, shout out to the sponsor, Focus Cube Habitat.
Can I say something really quick?
Sure.
And I said this before, it's so hard to reinvent a box. What Focus Cube is doing in the industry right now, it wasn't one or two good ideas. It's like every fucking time I check them out, they got a new idea that I'm just absolutely in love with.
They are the best. I love Focus Cube Habitat. Shout out to the sponsor, Focus Cube Habitats, Ashley and Steven. Hey, dude, seriously, two of the hardest working couples in the industry. Like, I saw them finally at a show for the first time at Arlington, and they were like, it's like letting a kid out and seeing daylight for the first time. Like, they don't have any really skin coloration. It's kind of scary, but they're good. I'm just saying they work really hard. Like, this couple is doing something next. Like, this is all Focus Cube right here. This is all Focus Cube right here. And there's still 4 more that goes down. I'm telling you, this is great. Shout out to Stephen and Ashley. And Justin, what do you got to say about Focus Cube?
I don't think I've ever been more impressed by two people in such a short period of time as those two. Just the amount of care that they're putting into stuff. And I've just been watching them online and just blown away for the longest time. But when they came out here and they installed the wall that we made, that you're telling us about, when they installed that, they literally drove all night long, got here, immediately went to work, put it together. I'm trying to help them. Of course, they know what they're doing. I'm just in the way. And they get done. I'm like, well, can I buy you dinner? Can I be like, no, we got to drive back. Literally we got more deliveries to go. We have this going on. They're talking about how during the pandemic, when they couldn't get plastic, they drove 3 hours for like 5 sheets of plastic just to make a couple customers happy. And in the end, like that's all they care about is just killing it, like really getting it done. And they're always like, what ideas do you have? And they're just absorbing it. It's just nice to see the fresh look. If there was ever anybody who came in and said, hey, you know, we need some seed money, I'd invest in them in a second, because the pure, cannot be denied hard work that they have is. I looked like a slacker by comparison.
Yeah. No,
Shout out to Focus Cube. Shout out to Focus Cube. That was amazing, Justin.
Yeah. Last little thing, you know, I've always been a big artist guy. I love pop art, and really just the way they were doing the doors, like these different shapes, like, you know, again, thinking outside the box. Little bit of paint splatter on the outside. They essentially created a piece of art for you to put your animal in the hobby. And it became a decorative piece of furniture for your home, in my opinion. And that's why I fell in love with them. At some point, I promise you, I will buy some cages from these guys when I have the right species to put in them. You know, maybe something we do for the Boygata in the future. But yeah, no, I just love what they do, man. Just like I said, every time I go on and stalk them a little bit, I see some other feature they're adding. Hide boxes on the walls with like the little brackets to hold it there, little brackets to hold your plants, you know, simple little things that, not to say, here's the thing, anyone could have done that. They did it though. You know, I built displays for years, and I said that it is very hard to reinvent a box. My tweak was a 90-degree angle lid so you could have a good view of the animal. That was my big contribution. But in a little space this big, that felt like a lot at the time, because how many times can you change a square to make it look any different?
Yeah, it takes a lot of creativity. They've got it.
How about this, Justin? And we can keep going as long as MJ wants. But here's my question.
Go ahead. Go. We'll make this.
He's got yawny face. He put a send for help thing up there, man. I read it. I didn't get real close, but I saw it.
Wrap up question, Levinson. Let's go. Come on.
For me personally, and somebody asked me this question today, and I really enjoyed it. It took me a little while to answer it, so I don't need a full answer. Tomorrow you start over. You're just a hobbyist. You're going to have 3 different species to work with, a pair of each one. What are your 3 species that you'll want if you had nothing else?
Wow. And not with no prospect of breeding, or just for keeping?
It could be a pair of everything. You could do for breeding also. Nothing mutation related, just species.
Okay, just species. Based on just what I like, and I think it's cool, I'd probably get I'm trying to think what I'd like to keep, like long term, if I guess just to have. I'd like to get some sort of monitor. I'd probably get like a big Leachianus, a big gecko, and then I was gonna say green tree. I'd want some sort of like tree snake. I love the mangrove stuff, some of the stuff that Kevin's doing with those mangroves. But probably a green tree, and just do three like that, and just for me. When you take the mutations out of it and the gamifying of it out of it, I don't think I'd keep it ball python. I think most people would agree with that.
Yeah, I appreciate ball pythons from an artistic standpoint. The species is not a bad species because it makes an amazing pet, but it's the colors that keep us coming back for more, I feel. But you know, that's us talking. When it comes to the average Joe, there's a reason they're in every pet store around the world. Right. They're a great starter snake. Slow moving, really easy for little kids. It makes sense why they're as popular as they are. Yeah.
When you add in both mutations and the fact that there's a creative aspect to it, where you can make something new. It's the gamifying of art. It's amazing. So yeah.
Can I ask Justin what he thinks about the $580,000 sales in geckos at the Las Vegas Reptile Super Show? What's your thought on that?
Without knowing much about it, Dave, what I know has come from Dave, but I love that there's love being shown to other species. I mean, for the more the merrier. Fantastic.
Yeah.
I'm not a hater, man. I want everyone to be successful. I live vicariously through other people's designs and sales. So when I heard that going on that weekend, that kind of made my weekend in Vegas, because it wasn't a bad show. It was definitely one of my slower Vegas I've ever had. I think a few other people would agree. But to know that was still able to happen at a show where a lot of other people said they had a bad weekend, I thought that was amazing.
Imagine the good old days, back when people were walking with wads of cash and, you know, drop it all on bar checks or Ralph's table or whatever. And I remember those days well. You don't see those as much anymore.
No, and
now, you know,
even those days, I don't think were as big as what that day was. That might have been, more than likely, that was the most a vendor has ever made at a show in the history of reptiles that I'm aware of.
Wow, that's super cool.
Yeah, I mean, I'll ask a few more people. Pete was the first guy I went to. Pete said that, no, he didn't hit that number. I could talk to Ralph, but remembering Ralph's tables back in the day, I don't think he would have had the quantity of an animal like that to make that much.
He mostly displayed. Yeah.
So,
Hey,
but yeah.
Justin, I have a wrap up on top of the wrap up question, if you don't mind. Obviously, you're around reptile shows. Poindexter with glasses, I'm assuming. I don't know. Very noob, very fucking. Nobody gave you the time of day. I remember hearing people. I don't know if it was Brock Wagner. I forgot who it was. It was somebody who said that they literally gave you no time of the day because you're just this young kid, you know, walking around, which is basically somebody here today, right? There's that years ago now happening, right? How does somebody accept the fact that, okay, I'm nobody, I need to just keep doing what I'm doing, versus, okay, at this point I demand respect, like fuck you, you know what I mean? Is what I'm trying to get at. I mean, at what point did you never really care about that? Did you let that happen gradually? Or I'm just curious on when you noticed when you were earning that respect versus just being that nobody, you know, going around people's tables.
I think I'm different than most people, but for me, I never anticipated that I ever could be on the level of my heroes. It was not in the cards in my mind whatsoever. They were them, and I was just the guy who wanted to be them. But it was not that I thought that was ever really going to happen. So I think the first thing I would say is, if that's your goal, you probably won't make it, or you might demand it in such a way that would make people not want to give it to you. But for me, I like being the underdog, and I know I'm not the underdog now, but I miss it. I miss the anonymity. People don't know who you are. I'm anonymous. I want to be anonymous again to an extent, because I feel a great amount. I love what I can do now and the influence I have, but I also miss aspects of just being able to do whatever I want and nobody cared. And I feel a great amount of pressure to deliver year after year after year. And I feel a great amount of pressure to not be in a situation where people say, that Justin's slipping, you know, he didn't bring it this year like he did last year. And I always want to do better and more. And that pressure is something that's, you know, maybe 5 years old, and I miss the years before that in that sense. But I think I don't appreciate when people demand respect. I think if you have to demand it, then you haven't earned it. And if you get it automatically, then you don't have to demand it either. So just let it come if you've earned it, and just focus on your craft.
I think what I mean by the demand and respect is when you have the upper hand and you have the snakes that people want. You know, like you know how that game's played, Justin, out of all people. You know,
I know that as soon as you have it, you live in fear.
I mean, we're not getting into names or any details, but there's certain people that you would rather not, like, regardless what money you want to spend with me, due to what you have shown me, I'd rather not fucking put this kind of work in your hands and put this in somebody else's hands. Is that correct?
That's true, but I would think most people who fall into that category don't want to deal with me.
I mean, but they do.
Well, they don't want to be seen as dealing with me,
That's why you are Justin Kobylka. They do. I'm telling you. But the thing is, they doubted.
I know.
Justin, the thing is, they doubted you from a long time ago, and they hate to see where you're at. They hate it. It's like, okay, if you're in the YouTube game and you see Barcheck, you hate to see Barcheck where Barcheck's at. You must hate it. You know what I mean? Like, I'm just saying, there's levels to everything, Justin, and you're on the top of your level, and respect to you. But man, fucking A, bro. Hey, Dave, how about this, Dave? Spinoff. Hot seat question for Justin. I'll go first. Think of a hot seat question for Justin while I go first. Are you cool with that, Dave?
I'm ready when you are.
Okay, here we go. Justin, hot seat question. You ready? One question. Out of the pre-selected people for Clutch, was Miguel Garcia one of them?
Yes. Hey, I was honest.
Yeah, no, that's fair. How about this, bud? And I hope it's not just Miguel again.
Uh-oh.
Who do you think has the best chance of surpassing you in the industry? That's a tough one, I know.
As far as animals go, probably Will Morose.
Will Morose? I've always said Will Morose is the Canadian Justin. I don't know who that's meaner towards when I say that, but the fact that in 2011 when he got in the hobby, he immediately started working on clown DGs without knowing that it was going to be so relevant a decade later. Yeah. I think that sets him apart personally.
A great sense. Yeah.
But in 5 years, we don't know what the next trend's going to be.
Did he say Will Morose?
Yeah, of course he did.
Dude, that's respect right there, Justin. And by the way, me leaving aggressively was more because Miguel does not answer my phone calls. Dude, listen. Will Morose, I got to visit Will Morrose's place. Have you been to Will Morrose's place before, Justin?
I've not. I'd like to.
Oh, that would be a dream. I could tell you that much right now.
Yeah.
Will Morose, I mean, like Justin, going to your place was one thing, right? And it is still something. I don't think there's ever been anything that has topped the feeling I have walking into a facility, like the way it is walking into Canova. Maybe it's the Bolins, or maybe is it the see-through walls, the glass walls walking through. I don't know. There's so much greatness going into Canova before you look at snakes. But Will has the snakes. Like, he has those snakes that make you feel like you're at Canova. And what I mean by that, they're not Canova snakes. They're Will snakes. You have to get to Will's place at some point. I would love to see what your feedback is after going to Will's place and what you feel like where he's at, because I have such a crazy, great feeling about Will Morose at RCR. I could say that.
Yeah, as do I. Yeah, for sure. Mad respect.
Cool. Hey, MJ, man, you know how to do this. I'm just going to sit here and stare.
Yeah, listen, Justin, I appreciate you so much. We had well over 90 people tapped in at this podcast, and I got to say, a lot of people tapped in that have never heard this kind of style of a show with you involved before. But what do you have to say to everyone interested, motivated, but more importantly, supporting what they had to hear on tonight's show and hear for you tonight, Justin? What do you have to say to all those people?
Yeah, well, thanks for tuning in. Thanks for learning a little bit about what could be the future of our industry. Some great questions, some great questioners, even if they're not quite good enough to get into Clutch first beta. It's good to be here on with you guys, and hopefully we can continue this conversation. I can't wait to see what the future brings. It's gonna be bright. I believe that it's gonna bring a lot of new opportunities to people that we don't even anticipate yet. It's very exciting.
Okay, one last thing. Like let's just say theoretically, like what you were launching with Clutch had to do with green tree pythons. What I maybe would have made it, you think?
Yes, of course. 1,000%.
Can I just say, Clutch should be perfect for green tree python breeders because it's showing everything everybody is showing anyways. It's creating waiting lists that they already have in that industry. There should be a green tree python guy in there. It might not be MJ. I'll give you some other suggestions after the show's over, but you know.
Oh, hold on, dude. They picked 10 people. I'm saying I had to be within that 10. Like I could be within that 10, like at least. Like, come on. Like, here's
I
the
would say
thing, Justin.
you're in the top 12, I would say.
What the Justin? You could have just listen.
No, I got you.
Listen, hey, Justin, if it's one thing, I will say this for sure. Out of all the people I send ID help with, and there's not a lot, there's probably 3 people I say, what would you think this snake would be? You're the one that breaks my heart the most. And I just got to say thank you so much. I appreciate it. And listen, and guess what? I would take your advice over anybody else. I'd rather take the truth. I'd rather take the truth than be finessed. And I feel like so many people want to tell MJ what MJ wants to hear, but not Justin, obviously.
I do too, but I know that's not the right way to be.
Justin, listen, at the end, hey, Justin, I value so much of what you have done, not only for this hobby, but for what you've done for this episode. Dave, anything to sign off with Justin before we let him go?
No, I'm excited, man. This is 3 years in the making. You know, when I was working on the other podcast with Ryan and Ben, you know, I'd always talked about having you on eventually. So, you know, getting started with MJ on this, I just wanted you to be an early guest. Like I said, I'm very excited to talk about this. Yeah. Look forward to all our private conversations we have move forward. And I'm sure if some of them make sense, we'll do them on here again.
Yeah, likewise. Can't wait. Thanks for a great interview. Both of you guys are you're top of your game. Appreciate it.
Justin, don't reply to Morph Market emails. Go to sleep, get some rest, and attack the day tomorrow, buddy. You attack the day tomorrow. Justin Kobylka, ladies and gentlemen, have a good night, buddy.
Yeah. See you guys.
Thank you, Justin.
What do you think, buddy? I think that went really well.
That's the way podcasts are supposed to be, man. Conversation after conversation.
Hey, I appreciate you not busting my balls of me being so quiet when you're fucking killing it, and I'm just high enjoying it. Like I was literally a spectator tonight. I felt like, in a sense, it felt great. I didn't need to speak.
Yeah, can I tell you something I wasn't going to tell you, but you know I'm going to tell you anyways now.
Sure, I don't care. Tell me.
So last show, I really wanted to be on your level, so I did do a couple bong hits beforehand. I think between me being tired and a little high, I couldn't even function. Weed does one or two things for me. I think that bong hit literally fucked me up before I came on here.
So you're talking about you smoked a bong load on the first episode?
Yeah, before we got started, I smoked before we started, and honestly, it completely made me mentally check out. My head was going in different directions. I couldn't pay attention to what you guys were doing the whole time. I just thought because that was our level at Tinley, maybe I should try to get to something like that. And that's when I made that comment afterwards. I got to be more genuine to myself and what I bring to the table and not try to be somebody else's brand.
I also think that the whole live thing and us not being together, really, you weren't ready for that. Like I put you on the spot comments there and like a lot of stuff that you weren't ready for, but it's all good. Listen, So
can I ask you a question? Is this still fucking people listening right now? Did you do that thing where you leave it on and we get personal and the thing's still rolling, or are they cut off?
There's 69 people right now tapped in still. What do you mean? Yes.
I just didn't know how real this conversation was. I feel like I'm...
No, we're not done. Look, we have a super chat. Look, we're not even done. Listen, Dave, at the end of the day, there are a lot of things that were spoken to tonight that if it wasn't for you, it would have never been brought up to a man like Justin. And it's important to talk about this shit when if you think about Justin in the ball python community, he's the forefront innovator. He is the fucking Elon Musk. That's what Justin is to the ball python community, right? But there's need to be challenging questions. There needs to be people asking about the metaverse shit. And I'm glad. Like, I would have never thought of this, bro. I'm telling you.
Well, like I said, who knows if it'll ever be anything. I'm the most stubborn guy when it comes to technology, so I shouldn't be the one talking about this. But, you know, like I said, we're going to go whatever direction we go in, and some people are going to get left behind if they don't want to adapt to what's happening.
At the end of the day, if you happen to tap in late to this episode, please hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. This was a great episode. I got to say, Dave, what's in store? I mean, you think we can pull another one off next week, or is that too much to talk?
If we plan it for Tuesday next week, it shouldn't be an issue. I got that show down in Fort Wayne next weekend, so I'll be leaving probably early Thursday or late Thursday, which means my Wednesday is going to be my hard day. So why don't we work up a guest? If you want to pick them, it's all about you next time, and we'll kind of go from there.
Well, I'm not gonna lie. YouTube is all about algorithm. We're better off sticking to a day out of the week. So if we can't do Wednesday of next week, can we do Wednesday the following week?
How about this? I'll work harder on Tuesday so I can fuck off on Wednesday with you.
That's the kind of shit that's gonna take us to the top, buddy.
But one thing, and this is something that I really stood by with the last one I did. I want a different species every week. Like I want to challenge.
Yes, I am down. Oh my God.
Okay.
Should we decide right now, or should we take a week to decide this? I mean, I could go straight I could tell you right now what I want to go, but I want to hear where you want to go.
Where do you want to go?
No. Okay. I don't want to go colubrid at all. No colubrids. Do you want to go colubrids? You do, don't you?
Well, I do want to do a garter snake episode sooner than later. We don't have to have that now. Here's the thing. Putting that one together is going to take finesse because there's a few figures in that industry, and it's hard to pick which one I want to talk to. If anything, it might be a group deal where we might interview 2 or 3 people in the industry all at the same time.
Yeah, that gets messy. I'm okay. I mean, I don't know. I'm not opposed to that, but the whole 3-4 people tapping in, it's very fucking free for all. And I don't know. I don't feel like people really latch on to that. How about we just get somebody we really want to have on? What about
Can
Warren?
I have 2 people? How about 2? Can you give me 2?
Who? This would be your episode. So who?
Well, no. When we do the garter snake one, I would love to have 2 different people in the garter snake industry on here with us because they have different perspectives on the industry. I think 4 people in a chat's very doable. I'll be willing to shut up and let them do most of the talking because that would be an episode where I sit back and learn.
I've yet to have any guarding snake breeder on my show, so that's great. I'm okay with that. Totally.
What do you want to do?
I would like to do fucking obviously anything emerald chondro related. I don't know. Let's get Warren Booth on the show. Me and you and Warren. That'd be cool.
Jump on with Warren. I had a good one with Warren a few years ago. I wouldn't mind doing Warren again. But I will say, I did Junior before. I've done Warren. I'll do Warren again. I want to go something that neither of us have done yet. I want to challenge ourselves to talk to people that we don't know anything about and enjoy the conversation. How about this? I'm going to throw you 3 people this week. You throw me 3 people, and we'll let everyone know on Friday who we're talking to.
All right, cool. And then if you want to know who the hell we were considering, make sure you go down to the link below. Join the Trap Talk Patreon family right now, and you'll get to know. Dave, listen, have a good night, buddy. You guys have a good night. I appreciate all 90 plus of you who tapped in on tonight's episode. I got to say, it was kind of a different interview for Justin Kobylka. We heard some great information and some good progress on where Clutch is headed. And I got to say, I had a great episode. Dave, thank you so much. You're the man, bro. Everyone have a good night.
Fun, man. It's the way it's supposed to be, bud.
It's the way it's supposed to be. That's ERP 52. That's a wrap. We're out.